This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Mountain Glass Arts. For the month of March 2019, Mountain Glass is offering their Boros sale. You can get Pyrex rod and tube at 45% off. No promo code needed, but this sale is not combined with any other discounts and does not include 7 to 9 millimeter color rod. And for all you beautiful soft glass nerds, they have their Effetre sale, 35% off Effetre. That's E-F-F-E-T-R-E, which is the promo code. So again, just put in promo code Effetre, E-F-F-E-T-R-E at checkout. And this sale does not apply to sample packs and is not combined with any other discounts. And for any other questions, comments, or concerns for weekly sales, kiln sales, and all the other fun stuff going down at Mountain Glass, go to mountainglass.com. That's mountainglass.com. Hey, what's happening? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 210. This is your host, Jason Michael, and thank you so much for tuning in today. Today's a special episode featuring my dude, Aaron Evans. Aaron and I go back a little bit over a decade, and I first met Aaron, which you'll hear in this show as we talk about it, over Facebook. He was doing a little competition looking for someone to create a piece for him, some functional art to symbolize and celebrate his grandmother's life, who had recently passed away, and she was one of his best friends, and wanted something to really memorialize her. And out of the hundreds of artists that submitted work via pictures through Facebook, he chose my work for that competition, and call it competition in a sense, but he fell in love with my work, and from that point on, him and I have been communicating and going back and forth over the years, and I've been there during his struggles and things that he shares in this episode. We don't get into too much detail about the struggles. We get to more into a little bit of everything other than that. I guess he had recently done another podcast episode where he had talked and shared about his trials as being a caretaker for his father, who had been diagnosed and come down with Alzheimer's. And I didn't want to really delve into that too much because of the healing he's still going through, and I didn't want to open that wound, and also because he had already had a show that he had really dived deep into that discussion. And Aaron's a pretty cool guy. He's a musician. He's an artist. He's the kind of person that isn't afraid to speak the truth and share his mind, and wants to live his life in a way that he feels that could help change the world and influence others, including myself. And as you'll hear in this episode, him and I, we cover everything. This is actually one of the first episodes where I had somewhat of a political conversation, and but again, we kind of cover everything. It was a lot of fun. We weren't sure how long it was going to last. We kind of figured at least 2 hours, and we hit it on the nose of 2 hours, which was pretty wild, and could have gone on for a lot longer, I'm sure, but we have a lot more going on. But one of the fun things that Aaron has recently done is, over the last 18 months, while he was caring for his father, he developed and created the first ever stop-motion video for a song that he wrote that incorporates his glass that he makes. He has his own little signature piece now that he's come up with, and something that I've thought about, and I guess kind of on a side note, a lot of times I discuss and with other friends, and also on here, you have an idea of something that you want to do in glass or just in life in general, and just by discussing that idea, it just kind of puts that out into the cosmos. And next thing you know, there's like 5 people that are doing it. And unbeknownst to you, they're somewhere in the world beginning this process of doing something that you just discussed with somebody. And kind of serendipitously with this whole thing, I was talking with one of my artists at work about kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of a life project or something like that, to create a full short film that had nothing but glass. That was a animated film, basically doing stop motion capture. And literally within like 2 days after I had this talk, I got a text from Aaron with his link to the video that he had put up, and fortunately was one of the first to actually see the completed project, and it's pretty fucking rad. It's amazing, not only just the time and dedication that went into the glass itself, but he also had to build the sets and then also film it and everything. It's an incredible culmination of whatever his lifelong, basically, trials and tribulations and lessons and things he's learned over the years that he was able to put into this one little short music video. It's pretty rad, and it's called One Tribe. I have a link in the show notes for you. You definitely got to check it out. It's fantastic. And you'll hear the music at the end of the show. There's a little bit of an instrumental going on, and this was a lot of fun to edit because it gives me a chance to play with some music since he gave me the opportunity to use it in the show. And he's also in the middle of helping me create a new intro for the show, something I've been wanting to do for a while. So he's going to send out some tunes to me to create a new intro for the show. So stay tuned for that, as Season 5 will be airing here in June. It'll be the beginning of Year 5, which I can't believe we have now going into the 5th year of the show. It's so crazy. But I think it's the 5th year. I'm going to have to go back and do the math. But I'm pretty sure. I know we're in Season 4 right now, and I started Season 4 in a weird spot within the shows. So anyways, it will be Season 5, whether it's the Year 5 or Year 4. But that being said, I'm excited to work with Aaron and collaborate on that. So definitely go check out his music video. It's fantastic. But he's an overall rounded artist. He writes and raps and sings and paints and does all kind of cool stuff. So I think you definitely will enjoy this conversation him and I have in this journey that he has. And recently, a couple weeks back, as I kind of covered with him, I had a chance to go out to Colorado to experience my first time ever going to a legal state. And I'll tell you what, those have not had a chance to go into a state that's legal in terms of the use of cannabis and the laws. It was the first time I felt comfortable and at home in a space that didn't feel like a criminal in terms of my medicine that I use. And on another side note, I'm kind of been experimenting with myself as I've gone over these years, and in the back of my head, I've always kind of had this thought that, I really should stop smoking for a while just because of how it affects my focus and my energy levels. So the last week, I've taken a break once I got back from Colorado and started my workout fitness stuff today. And once I get my routine going again with my workouts, then I'm going to reintroduce it and kind of see how I feel. And it's one of those kind of things. It's not for everybody. As much as I'm an advocate for it, it's not always for everybody. And it's, again, something kind of in my subconscious has been telling me to stop for a long time because it does affect me in a negative way. And it sucks, but it is what it is. So that being said, Colorado is beautiful. Went to Fort Collins, had a chance to see my brother, where I stayed with him and Rachel, his girlfriend, and their little puppy, Miss Dolly. She's adorable. And that's Dolly as in D-A-L-I as in the artist. And got a chance to go to Colorado Color Company's open house and kind of break their new studio space in, which is amazingly awesome to see this growth for a small company that is now where they are, to have a facility to create their production, but also have a space and a creative space for other artists to come in and work. And if you're in the Colorado Fort Collins area and you're looking for a space to rent, they do have some spaces open. I posted it the other day on my Instagram, so definitely check that out. They're a bunch of great guys. I have Sam's going to be coming on the show here, not this week, but the following week. We're going to record this Sunday, and then they're going to also become one of our new sponsors for the show and be offering you, all the listeners, some special deals and stuff. And we have a lot of things in the works we discussed while I was there and also over the phone since then. I'm truly excited and blessed to have had these guys on board. Again, it's our community is full of just amazing people, artists, minds that have all these different perspectives and views and opinions and stuff. And it's fun. We can all sit around and share opinions, and whether we agree with each other or not, we all can still sit around and chit-chat and have a good time and conversation and debate and whatever. And again, kind of going back to this conversation Aaron and I had, it's very similar to what him and I had in this conversation. Him and I have very similar perspectives in life, but we also kind of discussed kind of some of the ramifications of what has been happening with social media and just the overall political world that we're in, and also the kind of within our industry, and it's interesting. So those that have been in this world of glass and the functional world for the last 20 years or more or less, really, I'd say the last 10 years or so, you've really seen this dramatic change where it's gone from an underground art to an art that's now view of the public that is now becoming industry because of how laws are changing. So we all got to think about that. And him and I discussed that also in here, and I've discussed it in past episodes. And, getting a business mindset as an artist to be prepared for things that could potentially happen down the road, and kind of think about preparing yourself for, say, if OSHA begins to require studios to have certain regulations, like they required, the EPA came in with the color companies and required these guys that are manufacturing the color, the raw materials, to have a zero emission and all that kind of stuff. So as we grow in this trade slash industry, lost a word there, begins to grow and evolve and expand, we have to do the same thing. So just pay attention to that, and I'll be discussing more of that as we go along in this show over the years, because I'm not stopping anytime soon. And thanks for sticking up with me here and getting put my best dubs out there from the vault. The last month or so was kind of crazy with the trade shows going on, and everybody got real busy with the trade shows, and I didn't even take that into consideration when it came to scheduling interviews and getting people set up. So we're back on track, and now we've got a bunch of amazing people coming on board and artists and stuff. So I'm really excited for what's to come. But if you're not familiar with the Colorado Color Company, definitely go check them out. I think that they are just coloradocolorcompany.com. Also on Instagram as well. You can check those guys out. Definitely a bunch of great artists in there, and they're doing some amazing stuff. And what else? Go definitely, if you have not yet subscribed to Mountain Glass, as you heard in our earlier ad spots, they have their monthly average sales going on for March. The one thing with Mountain Glass that they've been doing the last year or so is doing weekly sales as well. And if you aren't a part of their newsletter, then you're missing out on what they are doing. You can also follow them on Instagram too, Mountain Glass Arts, and they are posting up their weekly Instagram ads and stuff, and it's cool glass sales, limited sales, and stuff like that go on top of the monthly sales. Also, if you have not yet subscribed to the Instagram for this podcast, it's at wiseguy_media. I recently changed the name to wiseguy_media before it was radio, and that's because I'm going through this kind of a brand change where I'm really focusing on the umbrella of Wise Guy Media, and then all the little small branches that are going to be underneath this umbrella. Between this podcast as Wise Guy Radio, my YouTube channel at the Wise Guy Institute, all my wise asses on the Patreon, and that's continuing to grow. And speaking of Patreon, we still have our two guys on there. They're getting exclusive videos and stuff. Every month I go on there and ask, what do you want to learn? And they give me feedback. I make a couple videos for them, and then also do some videos too that are just kind of little side things that I want to share. And just now, finally got my studio at home finished up, so I'm back on track with getting videos done. And also, that being said, I just also started a student yesterday for the first time in a long time. It's a beginning intro into pipe making 101, and I'm going to be offering a intro, a intermediate, and then advanced classes as well. And the advanced classes are not going to be anytime soon. They're going to be in the way down in the future, and that's mainly because of myself and my skill set. I am so behind on practicing the functional work and just all the things that have come up in terms of the scientific seals and all these things that I can do, just not as proficient, which means I can't teach it properly yet, and that's something that I want to be able to do. So if you're ever interested in actually getting into functional artwork or really learning just glass in general, hit me up for sure. You can hit me up on Instagram. You can contact me through this podcast link, or just contact me through email, which is wiseguymedia@gmail.com. I have the link in the show notes for you. And one other thing I'm going to be offering here now, too, I've discussed in the past about how I'm running an Airbnb out of my house. And Airbnb has these Airbnb experiences. And I'm going to be contacting them to find out what I need to do to set up an experience for glass, so you can actually come for like a long weekend and stay here at the house and then have a glass experience. You know, it's going to be fun. It's going to be the kind of experience that will be for anybody and everybody that has ever been interested in just melting some glass. We're going to do pendants and just little fun, silly stuff, you know. Nothing too crazy in terms of an educational thing of actually learning this. It's just going to be an experience that you do. And I'm excited to get this rolling, so I'm going to be, again, contacting Airbnb. So stay tuned for details on that as well. You can come here. You can just come stay at the house and have a one-on-one experience with me, whether you're a couple, a group of 4 people. We'll make it happen however we got to do it. And I'm probably going to throw Disney in there somehow, work that in, since I do have guest passes that I typically use them up every year. However, I'm going to be putting some aside as part of these experiences to kind of incorporate my life into these experiences so you can kind of get an overall idea of what goes on this side of the microphone. And what else going on? If you are interested in submitting any work to the Flow magazine, I have Maureen James's. She's the main person over at the Flow magazine that runs the house over there. And she sent me an email saying that they extended the deadline for the summer issue coming out. The end of March is the deadline. If you ever want to have your work in a magazine publication, this magazine is the one to have it in. It's a great composed setup of a magazine in terms of the photographs, the articles, the step-by-step tutorials they have. And again, too, if you have any kind of tutorials that you can do, this magazine is a great place to get that out there. It gives you a chance to have a platform to get your voice out there and your work as well. So you can contact Maureen James. I have her link here in the show notes. If you go down to the bottom of the information, you'll see contacting Maureen at the very bottom down there with her email. And then also, if you haven't yet subscribed to The Flow, make sure you do. They, again, are coming out every quarter of the year, and they have their 4 issues. They have Women's in Glass. They have their Summer, which is marbles and paperweights. They have their Natures magazine, and then they have the Functional issue, which is pretty cool. So definitely go check them out if you have not yet. And so last month was all trade shows. I heard a lot of good things about Glass Vegas again this year. Saw some of the highlights from Champs. I didn't really hear much about the Age show at all, and I don't know if they're kind of going by the wayside or what, but just kind of curious on that whole thing. And other than that, it's going to be an interesting year. I've heard that Glassroots is going to be hosting their event. I believe it was in Asheville this year. And I'm going to make it definitely a point to make sure I am there this year, not to sell glass, but just to go to a trade show. I'll be there for one day, going to go just meet everybody and probably do some interviews while I'm there as well. And also something else that I'm remembering here now that I should be looking at my notes is that the GAS conference is going to be in my hometown this weekend, Thursday through Saturday. The GAS conference is the Glass Art Society. Last year they were over in Italy. And years and years and years ago, which I've mentioned before, I kind of felt like something down the road that St. Pete was going to be the next little mecca for glass blowing in this country, besides basically like up in the the Northwest, up in Washington. And it's pretty cool to see it. And I'm going to be there on Thursday myself, just seeing the shows. To be at these events, you have to be a member, which is like $75, I think, something like that, to become a member. And then you can buy a day pass or a 3-day pass, so you can have access to all the events and stuff. But there's a lot of demonstrations going on. Some of the best glass artists in the world are going to be there doing demonstrations between doing lamp working and also furnace work. So I'm super excited to get out there and see everybody and kind of rub some elbows and give some hugs. And guests I've had on the show before will be there. So I'm just, again, overall excited, not only to meet people, but also the fact that this is in my backyard in my hometown. Not really my backyard anymore since I'm in Orlando, but you know what I'm saying. I guess metaphorically speaking. So until then, I'm going to stop rambling here. If you want to come help support this show, you can join our Patreon, become a wise ass for as little as $1 a month. It definitely helps out the show. It helps me to cover costs and expenses, and also helps because everything I make and earn through this show, through sponsorships, goes right back into this show. Money's being put aside for new equipment, for video stuff, for the YouTube channel. I want to be able to do giveaways like T-shirts, sticker packs, all that kind of fun stuff. So again, for as little as $1 a month, gets you in the group, and I want to build this community because there's communities out there in the world of glass, and they're so big and extensive. And don't get me wrong, it'd be great to have 15,000 people on Patreon. However, I like the idea of having a really intimate group of artists that we can all communicate and share ideas, and I can then pick brains and figure out things that people like yourself want to see and learn, and then I can put it in there, and we can have discussions and stuff like that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's been fun just in general already having this. But if you are in the $10 a month group, that's when you then get access to the videos. And again, the $10 a month just helps to cover my time really that it takes to create the videos themselves and then put them up there and all that good stuff. Because as we all know, time is money. So I definitely appreciate the support. And if you want to just support the show for free, you can go onto iTunes or whatever your podcast app that you use to listen to the show is and leave a review. It definitely does help this show out tremendously. Whatever it happens in the algorithms of the world of all the platforms, it definitely helps to promote this show and get this show up in the rankings. Back in the day when I first got the show out there, I was in the, for 6 weeks, I was in the, like the top tier of podcast, and it was right next to Shaq's podcast, which was fucking rad. And again, as you continue to leave reviews, you can just, if you have an iPhone, you can go right to the show, and it shows the stars. You can click 5 stars or 1 star, whatever you feel I deserve. And then right underneath those stars, it has write review, and you can click on that and actually write a review and submit it. And I'm actually going to go on here real fast. Oh, hit my microphone here. I want to see real quick just to see if I've had any new reviews, because I definitely want to start giving shout-outs and love to those who are leaving reviews for me. Well, I'm trying to do this and I can't figure it out for the life of me. I don't know if it's because I've already left a 5-star review for myself, because, you know, it's for me. But I'm kind of wondering. So I got to figure out how to get in here and see my reviews. So once I figure that out, I will, in the next episode, give love to those that have left reviews recently. And again, all you have to do is just go on there and click a couple stars and leave a written review, and I will give you some love out here, and do greatly appreciate it tremendously. So until next time, thank you so much for tuning in. Definitely check us out on Instagrams at wiseguy_media, out there in all the social feeds, and also my YouTube channel. Just go on YouTube and just search Wise Guy Media, and that'll be on there for you. And subscribe to that show. I've got some subscribers joining it, and we'll be getting videos up there very shortly. Also, just a side note, I am categorizing all these podcast episodes on the YouTube channel. Everything from tips and tricks, artist interviews, health-related ones, law and information, as well as the Wise Guy Radio Minute. And they're all going to be categorized, which makes it a lot easier to kind of pick and sub kind of what you want to do. So there you go. Love you so much. Enjoy this interview with Aaron Evans. Again, you can check him out on the Instagrams and all the social media feeds. All his links is in the show notes. So there you go. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay wise. Love you so much. Peace. What's going on, Aaron? Welcome to the show, dude.
Thank you very much, brother. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, man. It's about fucking time.
Whew, long time coming.
Yeah.
Long time coming.
Yeah, man. So, as we both said pre-show, we'll probably go on tangents and ramble and shit. So, before we do that, let's go ahead and just get this rolling here.
I can dig it.
You want to get us rolling here and say, how you got started and pre-flame and all that good stuff. I mean,
yeah,
I guess,
the rant.
Yeah.
The rant. The pre-rant.
Yeah, exactly.
So here's my spiel for the people. First of all, thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, man.
I really appreciate it. And to those of you that are new to what I do, my name is Aaron Evans. I actually started as an artist in the early 2000s when I founded a record label. And that seems off topic, but as I was explaining before the show, for me, my journey on the flame actually kind of started through music. And I think, on some level, there is this connection between musicians and glassblowers. Like there's like a mutual fascination. So I know as a musician, every once in a while I'd meet a glassblower at my show and I'd be like, yo, that's the coolest thing in the world. Finally, in like 2004, 2005, me and one of my buddies that were both very green friendly decided to make a side project called the Green Brothers. And it was just kind of this goofy album about two stoners named Claude 9 and Highway 411 who are out like traveling around the country on these crazy adventures. And we decided to make up the story of the story actually takes place in the 48 hours before marijuana is legalized. And it's interesting, as we were also talking about the show and how we're getting to the precipice of that materializing actually. In like 2004, 2005, we were like, yo, when do we actually realistically see this maybe happening? And we picked the date for legalization as 4/20/2020. So it just, we were like, yo, it feels like we're about 15 years away still. Like, and so it was just this imaginary date that we made up, and we go on this crazy cross country adventure together. And so anyways, yeah, we made, and as it goes with art, you pour your heart and soul into all these other projects, and then you just make something for the fun of it. And of course that's what like catches on and blows. So the next thing we know, we're like getting, great reviews from like Skunk, and we're in High Times. And this is when like MySpace first was like blowing up. Mm-hmm. So as a musician and as a band, you could really catch some love. So all of a sudden, like we had this like strong presence in the green culture, like across the country, and all these fans and like people wanted to be on the team. So we started taking on sponsors. And I'll never forget, our very first sponsor was a company called Smoke Clear. I don't know if you remember those clear rolling papers.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
They were like, they were the worst thing ever.
Yeah, totally. It was like, this is cool, and this kind of sucks at the same time.
Yeah, like, but like, we were so excited just to have a sponsor in the culture that we were like, sign us up. And so, we started working with these different companies, and relatively quickly, a local glass blowing company called Elevate Glass and us connected. And I can't even remember. It probably was on MySpace, or it could have been at like the local Ohio Hemp Fest or something. But we linked up, and they invited me over to the shop, and they were like, "Yo, you got to check us out." And so that was actually the first time that I like stepped foot into a glass shop. It would have been like 04, 05. And I think most people that probably listen to your show that are glass blowers, and to people that maybe haven't stepped on the flame but have seen it, there's something about that first moment that it just hooks you. Like I'm sure you know that feeling. And so I was instantaneously mesmerized. And so I would honestly just spend a lot of time just sitting around the shop watching, and kind of taking it in and absorbing what they did. It was actually, it's a husband and wife team. So they work together, and they both do really, really quality work. They're still out there. Check them out on Instagram at Elevate Glass.
Hell yeah.
Little shout out to the OG homies that introduced me.
Yeah, I'll link them in the show notes for sure.
So yeah, and so like I hung around their shop, and they ended up becoming one of the Green Brothers sponsors, and they'd hook us up for like, glass to do raffles and giveaways at shows and through social media, and I'd do like photo shoots for them in magazines, because back then it wasn't necessarily cool to show your face as a glass blower still. We were definitely still in the Prohibition era strong enough, and even Operation Pipe Dreams was still enough in the back of everybody's head. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't a decade ago. It was like, that was just a few years back. So so that even kind of became like, in a weird way, I was like almost like a pop model. I had these really long dreads, and I just kind of fit the image. So it all worked out, and I did that, and then they started letting me mess around on the torch a little bit. But what I actually did the most in that shop is I used to do a lot of sandblasting. And I was always really into I can remember going to Corning when I was like young, like 10 years old, 11 years old. My parents took me to Corning on a random like family vacation, and I bought they bought me a cross, and the cross was sandblasted in certain places, and I just loved that about it. And I was always fascinated with the etched look on glass. So I did that a lot in the shop, and I messed around in the shop a little bit. But but music was always the main focus. And you know, honestly, even to this day, music still is my main focus. Like, I love Glass to death, but I'm pretty confident like I'll be writing songs till the day I die. And I've certainly seen other mediums kind of come and go and have their eras. So yeah, like, you know, and the Green Brothers was going well. So I was rocking that, and I was, you know, just enjoying life. And I ended up moving to California in like 2009. And so, you know, this was a really exciting era in the culture in general, because medical was starting to really find its legs. This was when Prop 19 came in the picture, the first like big legitimate legalization bill out in California. And so I got there, and the Green Brothers had just dropped a new album called I Get Lifted, and I just dove in headfirst as an activist. And so I was working covering Prop 19, and I was working out doing rallies and blah, 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 blah. And I started working with this magazine, Nug Magazine, and they were a big supporter of our music, and they were obviously a big supporter of the legalization movement. And they asked me one day, they were like, yo, Aaron, we really, you know, dig what you do overall. Have you ever thought about writing articles? And I was like, I've never considered that one day in my life, writing an article. That just seems... I actually have a learning disability when it comes to reading and writing, so being a journalist was never on the agenda. And so they said to me, they were like, you know, well, why don't you, you know, go home and reflect on it for a bit and get back to us. And I had heard that there was a Champs coming up, and I had never been to a Champs before. And being that I was in San Diego, you know, Vegas wasn't that far away, and I had some homies I could call up and be like, yo, can I, you know, just roll over and kick it with you and slide in with your pass? So, you know, I found I kind of weaseled my way into Champs. And honestly, I got my mind, like, that was, for as much as the first time I saw a flame get, like, turned on and glass get melted, like, I walked into Champs, and Laceface was the first artist they had like displayed through the front door, and I was just like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, when did we get to this? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it just seemed like this monumental jump. And then, like, you know, right next to Lace was Jag, and right next to Jag was Slinger, and right next to, you know what I'm saying? And it just like, and it was really like, it was right before the pre-boom happened. You know, like 2010 was like when the talent really jumped, and then the rest of the world caught up. And so I've always taken pride in, like, I felt like I saw that the glass culture was getting ready to blow up. And so I went back to my magazine, and I said, yo, I really want to dive in like Gonzo style, head first, journalism into the glass culture, and beyond like the Hunter S. Thompson type influence. The other thing that really influenced me is, I don't know if you've ever seen any of the documentaries about the Dogtown Z Boys and their movement in Southern California.
Yeah, I'm familiar, but I haven't seen it before.
But there's a select few journalists that like just saw that the Z Boys were something special, and they made it a point to like really try to bring that to life. And I was like, I want to be one of those voices for the glass culture. Like, something dope's about to happen here.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you know, the magazine luckily was like with it. And so I started writing these articles, and I lucked out that like for my like third feature, it turned out Jag had just moved to San Diego. And I randomly like hit his Facebook and heard back. And so landing, you know, obviously like a very big name in the culture, who also, he had just put out Smoked Volume 1s and 2. So he was really networked in with everybody, you know, really strong through that and through his work with the gallery back in the day. And he you know, he loved the article and just started plugging me in to every, you know, I basically could just hit him up or his assistant up, and what's her name? Damn it. Shayna, that's it. Shayna rocked. She took care of, like, you know, really helping introduce me to a lot of people. And so, yeah, like in this, I ended up covering glass for like 2 years. And in this 2-year period, I really lucked out to cover everyone from, like D-Rec to, I debuted Sokol. Laceface ended up being my neighbor across the street for a year, so
Nice.
I covered her. I covered Rhino, all sorts of, just lots of Creep. Chad G, who's one of my best friends in the world now. Shout out to Chad G. Shout out to all the people I covered. Really, it was really just amazing experience. And I'm sure is from doing this show, one thing that's interesting about covering people is when you're interviewing people, it kind of cuts out that layer of bullshit in society that you have to like have the small chit chat.
Yep.
And it's like, we're here to talk about like the real shit. We're here to capture your story. And so that's what I really enjoyed about being a journalist is I got to meet all these really amazing artists, and I got to help tell their stories. And that, amazingly enough, is where you come into the picture. Is along telling these stories, this glassblower from Florida popped up and made these amazing little rigs. And I had actually, the exact story about it is I had recently lost my grandmother. And my grandma was like my best friend in the world, and I was really emotional, and I wanted to do some kind of tribute for her. And so I had reached out online about people doing a memorial piece, and you were making these really like elegant looking pieces at the time. And did you have a name for those? I can't remember if there was a name for them or not.
No, but it was a line that I was doing that was inspired from the Depression era stuff. That was back from the day. Just like you're saying, like a real nice, elegant, kind of clean. I was using a lot of the Contracts tubing for it too, so it just kind of had a fun look.
Yeah, it was sexy.
Yeah,
it was sexy. It instantly caught my eye. But anyways, it was one of those things where you got involved with being one of the people that was gonna make that memorial. Unfortunately, when D-Rec got the piece, it like wasn't big enough for what he envisioned, and so it just fell by the wayside. Like you said, that piece is probably still sitting in his shop.
Yeah.
It probably is. I know Derek. It's probably just sitting on his shelf.
Yeah, he's going to come on the show soon. We've been going back and forth, getting some shit lined up for him.
There you go. Well, tell him he needs to blast that piece before he's allowed to come on the show.
Mandatory.
Yeah, it's like he's got to put a pentagram on it.
Yeah, exactly.
And a girl with her legs spread open.
Hell yeah,
before he's allowed to come on the show.
On an elegant piece, that's perfect.
Yeah. Well, but that's what Derek does.
Yep.
He's like, hey, I'm going to take this beautiful thing and make it punk rock as fuck.
Mm-hmm.
So, but really, even at this point in time, I had not touched the torch too much again. I was still doing music. I had launched my solo career, which is really my main focus nowadays. I put all my music out under my birth name now, which is Aaron Evans. And so, yeah, I had launched like my solo career, and I was doing the journalism thing, and I was having a great time covering all you guys. And then, God damn it, my buddy James called me one day in San Diego, and he was like, "Hey man, I got a studio set up in the basement. You want to come over?" And that was it. I was screwed.
Yeah, exactly. Good way to put
it. Fuck my life. So yeah, man, like, we started like just raging out in his dirty, dusty, like it's not even a basement, it's like a subspace.
Like a cellar.
Yeah, basically. But I wasn't complaining. I was just happy. And I actually spent the first like 6 months just working on, like the little hand torch. There wasn't even like a second torch in the studio.
Huh.
I was just happy to like spend a couple hours. I was just making like little flowers and dabbers and, tiny little pendants and shit like that. So yeah, I did that for a little bit, and then as everybody does, we get drugged back in. I stopped doing the journalism thing because journalism is kind of a pain in the ass. And in it's kind of interesting. There's things like the same way that music got devalued as it became a downloadable thing. Journalism, as it's switched more to the internet, we've watched the decline of print journalism.
Yeah, and everybody's got a fucking blog and blah, blah, just kind of saturated everything.
So just financially, it got to a point where like I was investing way too much time for the return that was coming out of it, and I was like, yeah, I got to step away. So yeah, and then the last like few years on and off, I've blown glass as much as humanly possible. I ended up moving back to Ohio and blown at a buddy of mine named Rex Glass's shop. He had this giant turkey farm out in the middle of nowhere, Ohio. And yeah, I got my heart ripped out by a girl and retreated back to family and friends in Ohio and basically just locked myself in the glass studio as much as I could for the next like 18 months. And that's when I really started, to see like my legs under myself as a glass blower. And one thing I really liked about that shop is Rex is like, you probably know Rex. Rex is a super duper OG. You guys have ran into each other somewhere at some point in time. But his saying at the shop was always hours for powers.
Nice.
And that's one thing I love about glass as opposed to so many art forms is you can't fake the funk with glass. Like, you get the hours you put into it, you get back.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows in your work, you know what I mean? And we were talking before the show how, in this modern era, I can make beats on my iPhone, you can edit videos, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many mediums of art that technology has advanced so rapidly and so far that you can, achieve incredible results relatively quickly if you're willing to just put a little time in. But man, glass makes you earn it. Glass doesn't just like, glass is like from an artist standpoint, it's like the great, it teaches you humility like no other medium can.
Man, it's like the Dumbledore of, the Wizarding world in a sense of glass. It just puts you in your place and teaches you so much.
It really does. It really does. And it's interesting because I think even though glass is a medium I've done, for only really like 4.5 years with any, like commitment, I feel like I've learned so much about myself. And I've found my voice in other mediums even more through the dedication to glass.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, so I blew a couple years back in Ohio, and then unfortunately life kind of got crazy back in Ohio. My younger brother relapsed on heroin and like cleaned out my parents. And so we kind of 11th hour vacated my parents down here to Florida to get them away from that whole bullshit mess. And as soon as basically 2 months after we got my parents here to Florida, my father got like ravaged with dementia. So I found myself moving to Florida. I actually came down here for a vacation on my birthday and ended up never leaving. My stuff is still in a storage unit in Ohio. And it's now been 2 years later.
Yeah.
So yeah, and so basically like my glass story, like how I got to where I am now is I found myself here in Florida in this like caretaker role for my father. And it was, this very odd position where I couldn't really work a regular job because I needed to be available on a moment's notice. And I lucked out and actually there's like no glass blowers in the area at all. And I lucked out and found like the one guy that does blow glass only lives like 10 minutes from here. And so I found a shop where like I could work, and if I was needed to run home and help with my father, I could be there in like a moment's notice. But I never really planned on being in Florida, and Florida kind of freaked me out being here. I still kind of Florida scares me a little bit.
I can see why.
It's I try not to hate on any group of people, but the more conservative, I've always lived in a more liberal, bubble, I guess. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden being cast into like a small town in southern Florida was quite a culture shock for me. And I've met many, many wonderful, beautiful people here, but sometimes I do kind of stick out like a sore thumb, and sometimes it makes me have my guard on a little bit more than I guess I have in other places I lived. So, because of this combination of factors of like, I'm taking care of my dad and I'm in this weird place where I don't really feel comfortable. I was like, I'm just going to dive into blown glass and I'm going to try to pull off the craziest fucking thing I can think of. And that brings us to the present. And that crazy thing is the One Tribe, which I debuted 2 weeks ago now. 2 weeks ago this weekend.
Yeah.
And what the One Tribe is the One Tribe is the very first ever stop motion animation music video, which stars all glass sculptures.
Yeah, and it's fucking badass, bro.
Thank you much, sir. Thank you much. And that's actually, and it's an interesting thing for me because this, in many ways, is kind of like my official glass debut. How everybody makes like their debut as a glass blower.
Right.
And this is like, my first like line that I've ever introduced to the world, and the first thing that I've like really, I'm really putting my stamp on. But at the same time, it's also like the completion of my grand dream with glass. Because when I first started with glass, I was like, I want to make a stop motion video. And actually the original idea, I had the idea before I was even on the torch. And I won't name names, but I certainly approached a couple other glass blowers about doing this idea like 5-6 years ago, and they just looked at me like I was insane. And truth told, I was insane. Had I not been put into a position where I could just stack glass and to sit and make 50 of the same rig and just build up an army and have the patience to do that is not easy at all. And it's interesting because you've been going through that whole adventure with the dragon.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the dragon?
Oh,
Are you allowed to talk about?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know if we could talk about Disney stuff.
Absolutely. Oh no, I didn't.
But I thought that was one thing that was interesting the other day, that we've kind of had paralleled these last, like, how long have you been working on the dragon now? Like 18, 24 months, somewhere in there?
Around there. Yeah, overall it's been about 3 years in the making, but yeah, like production wise, it's been the last 8-9 months, I guess. But overall, yeah, it's been just over a year now.
Okay, and so when you the other day were like, we're finally there. And you had your post up about like achieving that, that you can now get the dragon and it's available and it's, and I kind of went through that same adventure with the One Tribe, where it's like I was, you learn so much with each piece, and grow so much with each piece, and they speak to you and you learn, they just kind of come to life. And to then be able to take that and transform it into this music video, it's the type of thing, like I spent like probably like 1,000 hours on this.
Oh, I can't even imagine, dude.
Yeah, like it's literally almost like a level of insanity. But when you're watching your father like slowly wither away and die, like daily in front of your eyes, you kind of are going crazy.
Yeah.
And so this was like my centralized thing to focus on as an artist. This and my new album. My new album, Hope Floats, comes out May 5th. And this, the One Tribe, is actually the first single from the album. So, I just poured all my energy when I wasn't caring for Dad, basically, into like working on the flame, working in the music studio, and I work out like a beast now. Florida's turned me. I gotta have my Florida beach body now.
Oh yeah, dude.
So,
I'm starting mine tomorrow, actually.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
Getting back
Dude,
on the shed.
I'm hardcore with it, man. Like I'm like literally in the gym every morning at like 7-8 in the morning, getting my yoga on, lifting the weights, doing it all.
Hell yeah.
I'm full. I'm team never get old. I just want to be Peter Pan. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
like I'm
both.
okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay dying, but I want to play until the day I do die.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm at.
Absolutely.
And Florida brings that out of you. That's one thing I really do. Like I said, coming to this weird place, that's honestly even been like one of the benefits though, is Florida, because it's so beautiful here, and because like the nature sucks you outside and sucks you into being active. Mm-hmm. It's you kind of get why old people move here. There's kind of like this like fountain of youth down here in Florida that if you tap into it, I'm getting ready to turn 39 years old. And I'm in the best shape of my life, and I'm more active than I've ever been in my life. And I'm like, yo, I'm with this. Like, this is the way to live. This is the way to do shit right here.
Yeah, it feels good, right?
It feels great, man. To anybody out there listening, if like you feel like you don't have enough energy and you're just like a little down, I am the king of like depression and suicidal thoughts and all that dark negative bullshit. And like really every day, like I wake up and I on my Instagram, I call it Camp Fuck Depression. And I check into Camp Fuck Depression every single morning. And it makes such a difference.
Yeah.
It makes such a difference.
Oh, yeah, dude, it's amazing. Like, and that's like dealing with ADHD and like having my own depression and anxiety and past dark spaces I've been in, man. Like when I was, I guess, 38 when I started my workout journey. And my goal was like by 40, I want to have a visible six-pack. And I got really fucking close. And then I went through a divorce and then became a little fat kid sitting in bed eating Oreos and shit. So, no, at 42, I'm ready to get back on my groove. I'm tired of feeling soft,
Yeah, no, it's I'm so in the groove now. I'm coming up on like a couple years being in the groove now. And I think back on not being in the groove, and I'm like, I don't know how I did it.
I know.
And I'm constantly, I'm like, no wonder I was depressed as fuck.
Yeah, totally.
I was sitting around not doing anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and
I'm like,
and being a glassblower too, man, it's such a physical thing that we do, whether you're sitting or standing all day, and it's like to have a strong core and physically feel good, and then mentally have the focus on top of everything else. It's amazing how much more shit you can get done, and also the quality of what you're doing that you're putting into that piece, And like for myself, I was doing jump rope workouts and learning the process of just doing a normal jump on a jump rope was frustrating as hell at first, but it's just like glass blowing. It's like trying to make a spoon for the first time. Then you graduate to a Sherlock. So for me, for the jumping rope, I was trying to do double unders and then crossovers, and I was doing all these tricks and shit. And I've had like marks all over my back, like I was whipping myself, with the rope, just getting frustrated as shit. But glass teaches us adversity, and for me, the jump rope and the workout was this very same kind of serendipitous kind of thing I was going through. And then I went.
Well, absolutely, it makes you earn it.
Oh yeah, totally.
It's the same. Like I was saying earlier, you have to earn it. You can't go into the gym and all of a sudden just be strong.
Yep.
You got to put in the hours, and so yeah, there's and it's interesting because I don't. As we watch a lot of glass blowers get older, I'm seeing more and more glass blowers with health issues, and hearing about people complaining about back issues and shoulder issues. You know what I mean? And I tell people, I'm like, yo, bro, you got to get on it. Like before everything falls apart, you got to like tighten up the ship. And that was even one thing with going through, the One Tribe thing is like, I graduated from making relatively small pieces to like big full on, tons of attachments, heavy as shit, type stuff. And I'm not a big dude. I'm 5'8", like $140. So it really took being in the gym to have the physical endurance to work on the flame all day.
Yep.
And yeah, like and it's not just the lifting. It's also, I really emphasize to people that like, you got to get the yoga and the stretching in there too. Cause like you said, making sure your core's tightened up and, everything's on point. So
yeah. And the cardio too, man. Cause it's like, when we're working on the torch, we're breathing shallow throughout the day. It's real meditative, so we're not having like this huge, heavy intake, outtake of breathing. And I honestly it took me probably a decade to really finally come to the understanding when I was going up a flight of stairs one day and I was winded. Like, why am I so fucking out of breath right now? And then I started thinking about it, like, well, my cardio sucks because I'm on the torch all day and I'm not outside, running around like I used to when I was a kid, doing sports and stuff. So, like, doing the jump rope for me was such a big thing for the cardio thing alone. It just changed everything. It got my blood pressure back to normal, like all kind of it's amazing the health benefits of just getting outside and going for a fucking walk.
Just being active. That's what I tell people all the time. Like, just try.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to become like Mr. Olympia. Just like get up and spend a little. I'm real big on self-love. Mm-hmm. That's another thing that has helped me get through like all this turmoil. Is I've realized that like if you're not taking care of yourself and you're not filling your cup, then you can't fill anyone else's.
Yeah.
And too much of my life, like I didn't love myself. I loved my ego. I didn't love myself. And when I switched from loving my ego to actually doing the things like going to the gym but it's not just going, it's all of it, going for a walk and watching sunrises, going out and shooting pool or playing pinball with friends or, there's just a myriad of things. Like self-love is, I did my first facial like a week ago. You ever done a seaweed facial before?
No, but it sounds amazing.
It's friggin' glorious. I'd
go get pedicures and shit done, and that kind of stuff, but
There you go. I like it. I've not had a pedicure
Oh,
yet.
dude.
I might have to do that. Yeah?
Yeah, if your feet
There
are
it
ticklish,
is.
it might be a little rough at first because mine are ticklish as fuck. So I like more than the
Mm-hmm.
girl that was, massaging my feet. But,
Okay.
because we're on
I
our
might,
feet
I
all the
might
time.
kick you in the face. There's a chance I may kick you in
I
the face.
told her
I just
that
wanted to
too,
let you know.
yeah. And I after like going about 10 times, I got used to it, But man, having your feet massaged just getting a massage routinely at least once a month is so important for us. Like the yoga thing too. It's just like we're a vehicle. We got to change our oil every fucking 3,000
Right.
miles or whatever. So get a massage. Go get your fucking feet taken care of because we're on our feet all the time. Like all that stuff is so important.
Yeah, there's not nearly enough talk. It's interesting. You often hear so many people talk about ventilation and that aspect of glass blowing and health aspect, and that's certainly a very real thing that you want to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But I never hear anybody talk about any other aspect of being a glass blower.
Yeah,
You know
and
what I
that's
mean?
why I
And
got this
it's-
show for, dude. Because like I've had like I had Brian Ratcliffe on a couple of months back, and he's been going and getting certified as a personal trainer and stuff.
Okay.
And he's gonna come back on, and we're gonna talk about this kind of stuff. Like he sent me some links for videos for like specific stretches that we should be doing on a daily basis for keeping our shoulders in check. Because like for instance, if those that work on big shit, our forearms are probably the tightest muscle in our body because of that constant rotation and the constant weight.
I can
you're
see that.
lifting. And if your
can see
forearms
that.
are super tight, and if you think about a rubber band being twisted up and twisted up and twisted up, everything that's attached to that rubber band is getting pulled into it. So your forearms are super fucking tight, which pulls your hands and your wrists and your metacarpals and stuff in your hands, which causes carpal tunnel potentially, or maybe tendonitis. But it also goes up into your shoulders, which then goes into your neck and your back and everything else. So your tight forearms will pull your entire upper body into yourself. It fucks you all up. And my massage therapist is
okay.
like, dude, he was I've been seeing this guy regularly now, and he's just amazed by how tight my forearms. Like he's pushing towards my hands on the top of my forearms, like palm up basically, and my
Okay.
fingers are like curling towards my forearms while he's doing this because my tendons are so tight. And then they release, and then he does it
Oh,
again,
wow.
and then they release, and then eventually my fingers stop doing that.
That's intense.
Dude, it's fucking weird, but it's amazing how much better my posture becomes, all because he worked on my forearms. It's crazy shit.
I can believe it.
You know?
I mean, it's all interconnected.
Yeah,
I
totally is.
have I'm coming up on like 10 years doing yoga. And I always hated yoga class. Fuck yoga class. I'm sorry to all my yoga instructor friends, but fuck yoga class. But I do a personal flow where like I often just like go to the beach at sunset, or I actually have like a little meditation garden in my backyard. And yeah, I mean, keeping one thing about my yoga flow is I start at the top of my body and I empty the vessel. And so that's kind of the meditational practice. Is I start with just like a neck stretch and I work my way down all the way through my arms into my, and the very last thing I do after doing my calves is I do a headstand, which inverts everything. And
Interesting.
and so I basically empty the vessel and then I do a headstand to like refill the vessel. With like new fresh energy and get the blood pumping. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing how much, like one thing I bring up about the whole like yoga stretching thing is in the grand scheme of things, if you spend 2 hours a day, which is a lot, I work out a lot and I'm still not quite at 2 hours a day, but that's still not even, committing 10% of your life, so that the other 90% is like 1,000,000%, easier.
Yeah, absolutely.
And people, that's the part that I try to relay to people is it's like, look, you're going to work a little harder a little bit of the time so that it's so much easier all the rest of the time.
Yeah, and and once you accomplish that, man, especially if it's the first half of your part of your day, like, they even say like making your bed is such a huge thing psychologically for yourself just by doing that one simple thing, starting your day off by accomplishing something. So if your entire day sucks from that point on, at least you had something that you accomplished.
Oh, waking up every day and getting a win is imperative.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, especially if you're dealing with depression and you're dealing, with just a difficult era in life, you got to give yourself easy wins. Because, especially if you're going to take some losses that day. Like, if it's not going to be an easy day, at least, like, make sure it gets off on the right foot.
Yep.
Yeah, like, that's glass blower or not. That's something I preach to everybody.
Yeah, man.
Sure.
So before we go any further, I want to back the fuck up here.
Okay.
Because we have covered
Word.
a lot here. So I'm gonna put links out there for the Green Brothers stuff. I was just on while you were talking earlier. I was looking at it on YouTube, so I got the links for that. So I guess on my side of the story, in a sense, it's kind of fun and serendipitous how this all kind of, you and I kind of came together, because at the point in time where you were putting out, the looking for a glass artist to create this memorial piece, I don't remember if it was my brother or somebody else, but they had tagged me on the post that you put up on Facebook. And at the same time, my brother's his mom, who was my ex-stepmother, had opened up a smoke shop, and I was looking at getting stuff in there and helping them open the store and stuff at this new location. They had one location, they moved to a new one, which was better in the long run. And those pieces I was working on, I had gotten contact with Chip, or Shipwreck, and he did some electroforming for me on some pieces for their shop, the same piece that you had, that you liked a lot, and. So that they had tagged me on your posts. I hit you up like, dude, I'd be fucking honored to do this. And then we both connected, and out of so many hundreds or whatever that you were hit up by, I got chosen. And for me, it really built my confidence in myself as an artist, just to know that there's another musician artist out there that was enjoying my work. Because being in Florida and for my entire life. In this glass culture, I've really been secluded from the culture in general. I really haven't gone to the trade shows and been out there. It's one reason I wanted to do this podcast, to introduce myself to the culture, but also to get to know people and to talk to people, and get to know these artists who I've looked up to, like the Jags and stuff, for so long. I still got to get him on the show, but so for me at the time period, I was still kind of in my little bubble in Florida. Like the glass scene was kind of growing a little bit, but it still was kind of stalling, here and there. And then the pipe laws were being all fucked up here, and I mean it was just all crazy shit. But you were like this shining light in my life at the time, in my career, in my glass. That was like, cool. I got someone out in California who's a musician. I loved your music and stuff. At the time, I didn't know who you were or your music, but I immediately fell in love with all your stuff. And then I found your video, your We All Work one that you did on the subway, and I thought it was like, at the time I never went on YouTube much. I was just kind of avoiding all that shit because I know how my brain works, and the next thing I know, I'm 4 hours into cat videos and bullshit, So,
right.
But I came across your We All Work thing. I looked it up, and I was just like, man, this is so creative and fun, and like, not only just the video itself, but the message behind your song. And like seeing the people in this fucking subway that were like strangers that you had no idea who these fuckers are, but they're all like having fun with you guys. Like, it was so cool to see this. And then to get my piece chosen for this whole process, and I had looked up to D-Rec for the longest time of his work, and also Chip, and it was like this kind of culmination of all this stuff for me. And then literally within about 3 years from that point is when I got contact. I made my contact with Arribas Brothers at Disney, and then I got into that place. So it's kind of like slow build for myself and my personality and my glass. I heard it had already been about a decade into the work at the time too. So, it was kind of fun for how it all came together. And then you and I have stayed in touch this whole time, on and off, as we do. And
sure.
Now you're in Florida, and you went through what you went through, and knowing your background and your music style. And then as soon as I started seeing the dabbers and the little pendants you're making and stuff, I was like, man, that's just fun. I could see you were just having fun, which is what glass really should be all about. The money aside, it's just all about the creativity and the fun. But then I started seeing your rigs that you were putting out there, and for me, it really spoke, like the Bishop kind of style that you were doing was like, it was so you. There was no way that anybody else could create this style in this piece. And like your music style, your flow, your philosophy in life, it all to me kind of all came together into this one specific thing that you now have as a glass piece. That's your voice in the glass world. And then here we are now current, where you take everything and make it all this motion capture, video with your glass and your music, everything done by you. People that are going to see this video are going to shit themselves, because it's, you watch stop motion movies, and it takes thousands of fucking hours just to create a 5-minute segment, and you're doing this in glass. Yeah. So not only did you have to go through and create all these pieces, you also had to create the sets. You had to come up with the ideas for what you're going to do. I mean, everything, dude. And you tell this cool little story that is in your music that you can show through your glass. It's such a unique thing that you as an artist have come up with that makes you stand out amongst this gigantic fucking sea of amazing talented glass blowers out there. And hopefully it inspires other people to do this.
I greatly appreciate that compliment. I think my, all of our dreams, and like kind of going back to the journalism thing, like we all just want to bring our little voice to the glass culture. You know what I'm saying? We all just want to make our little contribution of something original and something that's us. And I'm really, you know, like I was either the first or second journalist to cover degenerate art. You know what I mean? And I remember I got to see a preview of that shit like in Jag's office before anybody else in the world had seen that shit.
Nice.
And I was like, yo, like what the fuck? You know what I mean? It just blew my mind. And you know, I don't know how far this all will carry, but I know that, you know, I think one reason we all want to contribute with our voice is that there has been this ongoing struggle within, you know, particularly the borough culture and the pipe culture for legitimacy as artists. Mm-hmm. And I feel good that I could combine, you know, my other talents with glass to bring something new to the table and, you know, hopefully help lend to that argument. You know, because with every little thing that someone does, like you said, there's such a sea of talent at the moment, and it's everyone contributing and really like just kicking in that door, which is what's been happening slowly but surely. It's interesting. I feel like, here's a question for you. I feel like we kicked in the door, but then somehow didn't bum rush the door. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, like we could see the light through it, and we just kind of took our time coming through it. Because like a lot of us, you know, there was this, and myself included, there was a point right before Operation Pipe Dreams where a lot of us out there were really starting to get our voice in our own work and really growing in this industry, unbeknownst to each other, you know, in a sense. Like there was these little subcultures of groups around the country, East Coast, West Coast, down here in Florida as well. And we were all starting to build our businesses. We were becoming successful at what we were doing. We were, you know, growing not only as people, but also, you know, financially wise. It was all coming together. And then these techniques were coming out, and we were all becoming inspired by each other. And then all of a sudden, Operation Pipe Dream happens. And, and it seems like that, in a sense, at the time, stunted our growth. You know, everybody kind of like went back underground, like really fucking deep.
They did.
You know, because I was, you know, I had a company I was working with, and the two of us were kind of like, well, we have a website. We had UPS coming to our warehouse every day picking up glass that we had orders going out. I mean, I had guys I had trained. You know, it was fucking awesome. And he was like, well, you know, legally wise, we really can't do this. And I'm like, bro, there's so many people out there that still want this shit. Like, I cannot just sit around and make fucking dildos and shot glasses all day. Like, that's not who I am. Don't get me wrong. I now that you know, and kind of put that aside, you know, the ego thing at the time, when at that age I was at, it was more ego for me than anything, because I was seeing the success. But I was also an artist with a little bit of an ego, or maybe I had a lot of ego. I don't really know. But I went right back into the pipes. But I was also still kind of squashed a little bit because the ability to sell the work wasn't really there for a while. So you know, so it seemed like the industry got stunted, and I still wonder to this day, like, if that never happened, where would we be now? I mean, I had never imagined in a million years, 20 years into this, where we are now in this and the art that's being created. I mean, like the most talented artists I feel technically wise out there are these fucking pipe makers. You know, and they're American pipe makers. You know what I mean? Which is awesome. You know, because like for me, like the art world and the art scene through history has always been like Europe and outside of the country. There's been some super talented artists inside of our country, the Warhols and what have you, but it was more cultural, psychedelic, kind of protesting against what was going on at the time period. You know, glass has been kind of the same, but it's also been a little, I guess, very different in a sense. So to see this group of, you know, hundreds if not thousands of super talented artists that all got squashed, and then we all kind of started growing again, and then Degenerate Art came out, which then sparked this whole new generation of artists. I mean, bro, I still watch Degenerate Art, and that shit makes me get off my couch and want to go out my studio and blow glass. You know?
Yeah, it's an inspirational thing.
Yeah. So, but then that sparked this whole new generation of guys and gals out there, which then, to me, that's when that door opened up and that light shine through for all of us to see. And then we all kind of started finding our voice again and started walking through that door. And some of us ran through that door, and the guys that ran, like the Yu Sheens and the Joe Peters and stuff that are out there that are highly successful and well-renowned artists in general, not just pipe makers, but just artists in general,
right?
You know, were able to have this kind of, they were kind of leading the way in a sense, and we all just kind of followed through this little door.
Right.
You know, but with the federal laws and shit that are still going on, even though things are legal in certain places, we're still. I mean, like you know, I was saying pre-show, like I went out to Colorado last week for the first time in
Right.
an illegal state. I've been there before. I was on a conservative quote unquote trip, but this time was like me being myself with my kid, you know, who's now going to be 20 this year, which is fucking crazy. But to be able to go to a dispensary and not feel like a fucking criminal, it was so. It was just so relieving and amazing to have that sensation of knowing that I can just walk in this place and buy my meds and be good to go and enjoy myself, and see the culture there in Colorado amongst these artists that are they're all growing out there still, even though like certain areas of Colorado are like heavily saturated, but there's
Right.
still some areas that are growing, you know. And I still feel like this industry is kind of still branching out amongst this country and growing little by little and becoming inspired by each other. Some people are falling by the wayside. I mean, like I was saying, like the whole generation that got started from Degenerate Art or like the Revere videos and stuff that were out there, I kind of wonder how many of those artists are still around. You know, some of them got into it because, oh, this is a cool thing, which is fine, but then they found out what the reality of it is, you know.
Well, I think what it really boils down to is, I think, you know, we're now diving into a larger topic than just glass.
Oh,
you
yeah,
know,
totally.
and we're now talking about the shift of, we are watching the shift, and I've brought this up online, but everything is going from a culture to an industry. And the industry does come with that freedom that you mentioned. So it's obviously like this kind of crazy double-edged sword. But when something becomes an industry, you see this influx of people getting involved simply to chase money or chase fame, or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and, you know, generally that's what falls to the wayside, and what it really comes down to, and the people that stay dedicated. And you know, it's not just glass. You know, I've done so many mediums of art at this point. Like, let me tell you how many people I've told you that told me they're a rapper. You know how many people tell me they're a rapper, man? Like, oh my God. The only people I meet more, that's the only more than glassblowers. I meet 8 million glassblowers, and I meet 8 gajillion fucking rappers.
Right.
And you know, and it's, you can tell like who's in it for the art, who's in it for the legacy, who's in it to create, you know, their own voice and find their own way. And usually like the fake shit falls to the side, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
cuz they're not really doing anything, you know what I'm saying? And that's I don't know, not everybody's meant to be a painter. You know what I mean? Like, some people are meant to be carpenters or plumber. You know what I mean? There's a million different things in life, and really all life's about is what makes you happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, like, it's, I think you see these people that think it's going to be real cool to say you're a glass blower, and, you know, I keep meeting these people that have, like, these ridiculous setups, and they're like, yeah, you know, like, someone bought me a $20,000 studio, and I, you know, and they use the studio like 10 hours a week.
Yeah, I was about to say
That's
the
like,
same thing.
You know what I
so
mean?
fucking true, bro. It's true.
And you know, I meet a lot of those kids, and then, you know, but then on the flip side of it, you meet that kid, you know, or even how I got to where I was like, oh, you know, you got like a hand torch I can rage for 4 hours. I'm there.
Yep.
I'm there like 4 or 5 times a week, you know, and like you said, just having fun.
Yep.
Like, you know, for me, I was like, you know, I just got to like start to, and right from jump, I always wanted to do something that was my own voice. Like, even, you know, you said with the One Tribe, you know, there's certainly influences from plenty of people, you know, in the One Tribe. But what I really, because the story, we haven't really told the story of what the One Tribe is, like, in the video, and I want to cover that real quick.
Yeah, do it.
So, like, basically, the whole concept of the One Tribe is, there's sub-members and there's subcategories within the tribe. So there's elders that represent the older members of society that maybe have obtained more wisdom. And they're done within calmos that represent, like, if the rings of a tree grew on the outside, you know, elders have to earn their stripes. And that's how they get to where they are. Mystics are another subbreed that represent the more spiritual side of society. There's growers that represent people that are more in tune with the earth and, you know, live from the earth. There's scrappers, which are made actually like it's a group within the tribe that's made of like pieces that broke while I was making them, and then I salvaged things together and scrap things together to make like a scrapper. And so what the tribe and so part of what that was all about is, once again, from like covering all these people and being influenced by all these people, I'm like, yo, like, I don't want to just bite everybody, but like I want to have everyone's influence involved. And every time, you know, I'd meet somebody and they'd show me some new technique, I'd want to flip it in my own way and involve it in the tribe. And so the story of the video basically shows the tribe in its individual homes, be it New York or Northern California. And there's this unnamed group of evil. I literally called it the Unnamed. It was inspired by the Nothing from the Never-Ending Story.
Oh yeah.
I was like, what's the most like evil thing like I can remember from my childhood? I was like, the Nothing.
Yeah, definitely.
And I was like, you know, and it was so intimidating because it didn't have a name. It was the Nothing. So that's actually the sworn enemy of the one tribe, is the Unnamed. And it's just this underlying evil that slips into our world and is trying to condemn things like free, you know, intellectual trade and art and water resourcing and, you know, all these activist platforms that we're dealing with right now. You know, I touch on gay marriage. Who makes a video with pipes and decides to touch on gay marriage? Like, you know, you're taking it pretty far at that point. You're like, we're going to touch on everything.
It's amazing.
And so, yeah, but even like that's like, you know, this unnamed group has like condemned gay marriage. And it's like, so basically the tribe's like, fuck this. Like, we can't make art. We can't, you know, you're taking away our freedoms. We're dipping. And we're going to this place called the Mystic Magic Jungle. And basically the video tells the story of like the one tribe being like, fuck this, we're out. We're not dealing with like this bullshit, oppressive, judgmental society anymore. We're going to go find our own way and our own path where people don't judge each other. And so in the end, they all meet up in the jungle and everybody's happy and they have plenty of resources and they live in a better accordance with the earth. And so, you know, that's how I chose to use glass to like bring my artistic voice in. And I guess tying that into what we were saying about all these like new people is like, I'm not seeing, I don't see a high enough percentage of original voices emerging in the glass culture at the moment. And that's bothering me. And I'll just say that shit. I'm sure that pisses plenty of people off,
hey,
but like,
okay.
You know, like I got into this shit to cover it as a journalist, and I, you know, even to this day, like if I give someone props for their art, like I've worked with a lot of fucking amazing artists in my career, and if I give props, I mean that shit. And if I call something out as bullshit, I call it out as bullshit. You know what I mean? And I told you right before the show, I got bit for the first time. Yeah. I'm officially a glass blower now.
Congratulations.
I'm so fucking excited. I'm so fucking excited. Like for like half a second I was mad and then I was like, oh, I made it because you're making a shitty replica of what I made. And you know, but it's just, I think that's the thing is, and I guess it's larger than just glass. It is also rappers. It's you know, like so many people have a voice right now, but not enough people are looking for their own voice. Does that make sense?
Oh, dude, totally. I completely agree. It's well said.
And that saddens me because there's so many people subscribed to either these left-wing or right-wing ideologies. And you mentioned the Trolley Show earlier, which is kind of like the cornerstone of my career. And you didn't mention this, but like when that went viral, the end of that video is "We are rising, we are one," and I make the whole trolley screams "We are rising, we are one," and so the one tribe is actually like the evolution of that. But like one thing that I don't think people talk about enough is like we means we. That doesn't mean that I'm just like on the left wing saying fuck everyone on the right wing, or I'm on the right wing saying fuck you know what I mean? Like we are all in this shit together. And we are either going to come up with some kind of fucking solution or rip ourselves apart and fall. You know what I'm saying? And we need more people to stop subscribing to other people's ideologies. We need people to stop ripping off other people's styles and start using their own voice and speaking their own truths, because our world needs that like more than ever. And especially from artists. Like, that's our responsibility.
Yeah.
Is to like speak our truths to change the world. And you know, there's people out there doing it strong and proud, but like I said, from a lot of this newer, younger generation, it just seems to be like biting and just kind of playing the same old. It's like they're playing the same old record over and over again. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
You're like, yo, like, you gotta switch it up, play a different song, ask the DJ to switch this shit up.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, it's interesting, man, because since Trump came to office, and I'm not going to get political here because I really don't have a political opinion, because I have completely pulled myself out of all this shit. I don't watch the news anymore. Like, I'm in my circle of friends and my family, and we all take care of each other, and I try to have a voice in a sense, but the politics and shit, I just stay away from it. But it seems
there's a new party, there's a new group of us forming that are sick of the bullshit.
Yeah.
We don't have a name for us yet, but it's like team over the bullshit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, so yeah, we don't like, traditionally I was always a very liberal minded, type person, and I still probably lean left, but I don't subscribe to shit.
Yeah,
I'm like, yo, like, and I think that's a growing amount of people are really over the extremism from both sides.
Yeah.
And that's even kind of what I'm talking about when like people aren't using their own voice. They're just screaming the extremes.
Yeah, just following the leader like fucking sheep,
Right.
And it's
right.
And the effect is there, and I get it. It's not only is it like a psychological thing that is just ingrained in us, that just happens to it happens, just is a natural thing for us. But at the same time, like if you're in a group of people and you see somebody do something amazing, if one person claps, everybody ends up clapping. But if nobody claps and you want to clap, typically you're not going to clap because nobody else is clapping.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Right. No, totally.
Which
totally.
kind of which
so
sucks.
anyways, Trump, you were going to say something about Trump.
So
what
just
about Trump?
So just that, like, after the election, like you're saying, there's like the left and the right, and the turmoil between, the extreme of way things have gone is just, we're back to the 90s and the whole extreme everything, but it's extreme perspectives and philosophies and views that aren't really truly how people feel. I think, they're just kind of, again, following the leader in a sense. Some people sure are leading the game, and those that are leading the game have a stronger voice, and they're the ones that are making the opinions, quote unquote, and it's frustrating to see it.
Here's the other problem with the extremes and about everybody screaming, and this is what makes it different than the 90s and why I feel like we're more divided than others, is everybody in the world has the biggest balls when they're behind a keyboard or behind a microphone doing a podcast, or you know what I'm saying? But like, you sit someone down at a table and have that same conversation. And I mentioned this recently. I was at a poetry night here because I love going to poetry nights. It's like one of my great pieces in life. And I was outside talking, and I was having this conversation with a relatively diverse group of people, and we were talking about some very hot button topics. But everybody at the table certainly did not agree. You know what I'm saying? But at no point did anybody raise their voice. At no point did anybody scream at each other or call each other names or anything like that. And I paused the conversation at one point, and I said to people, I was like, so how many of you would have absolutely gone off on the other one if you were behind a keyboard right now? And they were all like, oh, I would have thrashed all of you. You know what I mean? And I was like, and that's the reality we've reached, is no one sits down at a table anymore. There's no more sitting down at a table conversations. Like, even, and bringing it back to Trump. Trump is our first like social media president.
Right.
And I think that's a landmark that isn't really like talked about. Like, sure, social media played a role in previous presidencies, but like Trump used Twitter I mean, just like a genius. Yeah. You know what I mean? 100%. Like, no matter how you feel about the dude, like, his social media campaign is what won him the presidency, and he uses it to this day. We've never had, and I if there's one thing I could really do without, no matter who our president is moving forward, if it's a president that doesn't tweet, if we could make a new law, the president's not allowed to tweet. That's just part of the job. I'd be really okay with that, because I don't think that Twitter is where I want to get my information from the person leading the free world.
Yeah, it's the last place I want, dude. It's to me, it's like the separation of church and state type of thing. Like the social media is like a religious platform, even though it's not. But in a sense, you know, it's just it's such a weird situation. It's I don't know. Like lack of a better term.
And that's what it's changed. Like, and then so that's what came with the Trump era. We've now moved into, you know, this era where, and I'm gonna fuck up her name. I'm really bad at learning politicians' name. The new hotshot, young woman with the Democrat Party.
I don't even know.
I almost want to look her name up real quick. But she's a young female minority. And she's, you know, saying lots of good things and causing lots of noise and whatnot. But like, one of the ways that she's gaining so much fame is arguing with people like Republicans on Twitter. And I'm like, fuck me. Like, I don't even care if you're making good points. Why is this like Twitter it's like that's become the town hall.
Yeah.
Twitter is now the town hall.
Yeah.
Instead of it actually being the congressional building where people would talk about ideas supposedly rationally, and we've seen how things go in those kind of court hearings as is. But now we've just opened it up to Twitter, where it's like anybody can say anything, and they're fucking, you know, million followers back them up, and and it's just it's become asinine.
Yeah,
it's become asinine.
When was the last time we had a filibuster that lasted like 4 or 5 days? You know what I mean? You know, going back to the old days of politics when they had the discussions, you know, and it's just
no. Now we just shut down the government.
Yeah.
Now we just shut down the government.
Yeah.
And like, you know, it's like, oh, I'm not getting what I want, I'm gonna shut down the government.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And both sides have done it. You know what I mean? Like, Obama did the shit too. Like, it's the, you know what I mean? Like, and that's one thing I think that's one thing you learn with age with politics, is that it's just all bullshit. Like, it's just
100%.
all you're like this is just bullshit.
That's why I pulled myself away from it, dude, because I grew up in the Republican Party with my grandfather, like helping him get people into office and stuff. So like, you know, I am like left of center in terms of my views. So, you know, I'm pretty liberal for the most part. But growing up in not only in a Catholic family, but also in a Irish Catholic Republican family that was pretty conservative. So, you know, I've seen it all in a sense. So at this age that I'm at now, I'm just like, I've just completely separated myself from it. But, you know, with the social media thing and the being behind the computer or your phone in a sense, it's like the guys that go off to war that are like photojournalists and stuff, and that they're able to go and photograph all this destruction and death and stuff because they're behind the camera, because they're able to emotionally separate themselves from what is actually the reality of what they're inside of, because they're viewing it from a little machine that's in front of their face. You know, and to me, it's the same thing with what social media has done. Social media has been a great thing for humanity in a sense, for artists especially. But it's also caused people to have this emotional humanity separation that causes strife. And, you know, people, you know, see things that are fake or that are just like this pretty painted picture that is not the reality of what that person's life is, but you still look up to them because you see all this amazing stuff that they're posting all day, or that they're talking about, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? So, you know, we've gone completely on a whole nother tangent about this, but
it's all such a facade.
It is totally.
Like, even one of my favorite ones on social media is so like I said, I used to live in California, and there was this one girl I had met when I was out there. I was always in a relationship, but I had met this girl, and she followed me online and stuff, and I never creeped or anything. I was in a relationship. I'm a good dude. I'm not. But when I found myself single and she popped up on my radar, I was like, oh, I'm gonna, you know, take the opportunity to get to know her. And this girl's just gorgeous. She's like fucking Halle Berry. You know what I'm saying? In every picture, she's, you know, eye fucking the shit out of the camera and just looks like adorable as hell. And so, you know, we start getting to know each other, and we start, you know, FaceTiming and shit like that and sending pictures a little bit. And she finally smiles one day. And baby girl just had like the most jacked up teeth I've ever seen on anyone in my life. Like, they were just fucked up. And I went back and looked on her social media, and I noticed out of the hundreds and hundreds of pictures, she never smiled once with her mouth open. Not once. And I was like, wow, for years you have controlled that part of your image. Like, because you're obviously like mad self-confident, like, you know, insecure about it.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because it was just this moment where I was like, everybody has something that's fucked up that they're hiding. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, 'cause she had just been this image of perfection to me. And I was like, oh, you're not perfect either. Cool. Great. No one's perfect. And everybody's faking the funk. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, and I think that's the part of the social media that I enjoy is that those that actually have a voice and that are being followed and paid attention to, like some of these beautiful women out there that you see them on TV and they've got the makeup on, so they have everything done up and dolled up, but then they go on social media and they remove all that shit and they're like, hey, this is the natural me, and they're still beautiful, but they're revealing that, you know, it ain't all fucking, you know, this ain't all real out there that you're seeing. This is the real me.
Right. Well, and that was what I think it was interesting to me because it disappointed me in this girl because I didn't give a shit about her teeth.
Right.
I was like, you know what I mean? Like, just be you. You're gorgeous. Your teeth are a little fucked up. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I got scars on my face. You can see the scars on my face when I take my pictures. I don't put the fancy little smooth my skin out, you know, application on. Yeah, I don't put that on there. You can when I put my posts up, you can see the scars on my face. They're there. When we meet in person, you'll be like, Aaron's got some scars on his face.
Yep.
So, you know, like why fake the funk online? So
yeah, and the glass scene's been like that though too. You know, like, you know, you see people out there posting stuff like life is amazing, blah blah blah. Here's all this shit that I'm selling for thousands of dollars, or they're running auctions. And like I see some of these new guys that are out there and gals that are like back in 5 years ago when auctions were a thing really on Instagram. You know, and they're selling carb caps and they're getting like $500 for a fucking carb cap. And I'm like, I'm over here struggling, like, what the fuck am I doing wrong? You know, and I'm beating myself up because Joe Blow McGillicuddy on the side over here is killing these auctions with this fucking carb cap, you know, and I'm like, that's like a week's worth of pay for somebody right there, and one little piece of glass that maybe took you 20 minutes to make.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the hype train with glass is very real. We all know it.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us really understand it. It's one of those things that, like, sometimes it makes sense. And I feel like most of the time the cream ultimately rises, but sometimes it takes a long damn time for the cream to rise.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like and part of that is that, you know, like you were talking, and so here's the other thing that's like, that I talk to people more and more about, and it's one of the downsides of social media as an artist. It used to be as an artist, like as a musician, right? If I wanted to call myself a musician, there was levels of legitimacy. You know what I mean? Like, I started like 20 years ago. So like, when I first started, if you got a CD out, that was a level of legitimacy. You know what I mean? Like, you went out and you spent money on a studio and you spent $1,000 or $2,000 to press up a CD. And it took some time. It took some effort. Once again, you had to put hours in. And then it became about having like vinyl, and if you had a piece of vinyl, that was like a sign of legitimacy as an artist. And then it became a music video, and if you had a music video, that became a sign. And now it's gotten to where like someone can make one song, put it on SoundCloud, start an Instagram, and they're like, I'm an artist, follow me along on my dream.
Yep.
And that's like the problem with that is it, and I was thinking about this before I came on the show, is it's like there's no line between hobbyist and professional anymore. Do you get what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, totally.
So
100%.
So like I don't have a problem with this influx of glass hobbyists. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you got your fly new glass set up and you know you're putting your 10 hours a week in and you're making your little carb caps or dabbers or whatever, you know, rock the fuck on. But like, I can't call you a professional artist. At best, you're a tradesmith. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're online like all day, like, yo, like I'm gonna be the next great artist. I'm gonna blow up and blah blah blah. And it just, you know, I think to those of us that have been involved with art for a long time, it's hard to accept that, like, because the problem is more and more the public accepts that as legitimate.
Yeah. And I think a lot,
and-
and I think a lot of it too. Like my brother and I were talking about this a couple months back. It seems like the way that the industry, I mean, art in general, but the industry too. It's like there's this new generation of people that are buying stuff that aren't educated because of the way things like. So like back when I was, buying my smoke, when I first saw pipes, it was from a buddy of mine who I was buying a bag from. And he had some amazing heady fucking shit that he had gotten on tour.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And he was able to educate me on who he bought it from, some of the thoughts and that went into this piece. And it was like this big crazy potato shaped pipe that had a bunch of crazy inside out swirls and patterns and all silver fumed. And it was fucking amazing. He spent hours looking at this thing. And then I became a glass blower and I began to educate my customers, the people that were either the stores that were buying my shit and or also my personal customers. I wasn't selling drugs or anything, but I was still educating people what was going into it. And now that things have become legal and you're going to a dispensary to buy stuff, you're not necessarily being educated from an artist or from someone that you're buying your shit from. I mean, some artists are, but it's like there was my generation, and then there was the next generation, and then there was like the art generation, and that generation are the ones that don't seem to be educating the next generation of glass artists. Which then they're not educating that next generation of glass artists in a sense of heart and soul into a piece, or they're not educating their buyers in a sense. Does that make sense?
Well, I think this touches once again on the whole like culture versus industry thing. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and
yeah,
that's
100%.
an example of like, you know, for a long time it was an ingrained subculture here in America where like that was part of the culture, that was part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're moving into this era of just like the general public's involved.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you got people that, once again, that like maybe they go to a dispensary, but besides that, they've never had anything to do with the culture, know nothing about the culture. And then all of a sudden, they hop on Instagram and see, the first glass maker and it's far deeper than glass too. I mean, like, look at the amount of like bullshit like cartridge companies that are on the market in the legal states, and like that are and they're taking advantage of uneducated buyers.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so yeah, it's there's not the education partly because people just don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're getting a more casual person involved because it's people that have been drawn in by this larger industry that don't really give a fuck about the culture. Yep. And that's fine. Yep. Not everybody has to give a fuck about the culture. It's just it's gonna be a very weird world to those of us that like existed before this whole change.
Yeah.
And have like 20 years from now, we're gonna look up and be like, what the fuck happened? Like, what, I mean, and generally it will be positive, but there will be plenty of, and you see it going on now in like Northern California and places with, where like, the transition from black market grows to legal grows.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And there's a lot of growing pain going on in that area right now. And I certainly feel for the people that have kept the culture alive for 20 years doing shit, fucking illegal as fuck up the side of a mountain, like, props. And it really sucks that a lot of those people are being driven out of the industry because it's but that's the barrel of the gun we're staring down right now, unfortunately.
Yeah, man. And I've talked about it through the years of doing this show. It's like, eventually, because of the way legalization is going to happen, there's a potential that we're going to be liable for the glass that we create. If it breaks and cuts or burns somebody, we could potentially be liable because we created this product that injured somebody. I mean, when you get
that's interesting. I've never thought about that specifically.
You get into culture, but it's true. You get into industry, and industry is liable. That's why they have recalls.
Right.
And if something's going to fuck up, all of a sudden you're hitting your rig and it blows up on you, like, fuck, I have to recall all my shit now, or hit up Walmart, like, hey, Walmart, I got my stuff in your stores, you got to recall all this shit, But then you also are going to start dealing with things like OSHA coming into studios and shutting studios down because they're not OSHA compliant. We already saw it with the EPA and the glass manufacturers, with all the fucking the CAD shit going down.
For sure.
So people have to be able to become educated and evolve and pivot as industry changes. And again, some of the glass blowers are going to stay underground, and some of the glass blowers will rise to the top. have their shit together, stay in check, blah blah blah. So
Right.
it's just
Right.
such it's a weird dichotomy that we've all been dealing with for really, it's probably been about the last 5 years with this kind of weird thing that we're in right now in this culture. It's interesting.
We're in like a super gray area.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is one thing we also talked about before coming on the show. I personally will be pretty surprised if Trump does not legalize it before the next election. Because as I mentioned, I think whoever is on the left is going to run on a pro-legalization platform. And it just seems like the smart political move for Trump to just go ahead and do that and take that, that power and platform away from the left.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he doesn't legalize it, he's going to have to run on a legalization platform. And that's what's weird about it, is we've like crossed the halfway mark as a nation. We just haven't like quite finished the job.
Yeah.
It's a very strange, I have a song I put out like a year or two ago with Task Rock called Wax Poetics. And I say, if it was like a football game, it's like we've come a long way, but it's still like 4th and goal. And we got to get the ball across the fucking, goal line.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Totally.
just because we're right fucking there doesn't mean that it's done.
Yep.
And so it's kind of like this last final push. And Florida, I know Florida, I actually had an activist this week contact me. I know Florida's going for it in 2020. So that's a positive.
Yeah.
That's a positive.
Yeah.
And Florida's medical passed 70%. Just the last governor was kind of intense about opposing what the people wanted. But the new governor seems cool as shit. So.
Yeah, totally. Well, Rick Scott, before his big problem, which we had talked about this with some friends of mine for years when Rick Scott was first coming on board. I mean, he had the largest fine ever for Medicare fraud, and he's also tied in with the pharmaceutical companies. So we all were kind of like, well, if he comes on board and shit gets medically legalized, we'll never see flour. It's going to go full pharmaceutical, and it's all going to be tinctures and oils and stuff, or whatever, which
Right.
is what it's become, what it's been. And they limited how many growers that can be here. It's like the good old boy network in a sense. So,
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully some things change, because constitutionally wise, we should be able to have all of it for medical, not just what
Yeah,
they
I
said.
mean, the fact that it passed 70-30 here, I think that is one of the best. That's one of the things that made me more optimistic that we were finally going to get the job done than anything.
Yeah.
I was like, if Florida is going 70-30, then we're moving into the era, and bringing it into the glass culture and the growth and everything. That will be the interesting thing. Is everything's going to continue. This industry, it's moved from a culture to an industry, but it's still a very brand new industry.
Mm-hmm.
And it still has so many states to grow, and then you start to talk about what happens as it becomes legal around the world, and how does that relate, like you said, like American artists, like what's a Prohibition era pipe from a dope artist gonna be worth 30 years from now?
Right. Totally.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like and even that's one thing that's interesting with this like absurd collector's market and how it fluctuates and has its spikes and shit like that. Like, all I'm saying is I watch the Antiques Roadshow, and anything alcohol related that pops up from the Prohibition era, like, the reviewers like cream their pants. They're like, oh my God, it's Prohibition era. Like, so, that's a fascinating thing about all this art.
Yeah.
Is we're all still technically creating Prohibition era art. And, how this shit goes down in the history books will be very interestingly written.
Yeah.
There's nothing to like parallel it to.
Yeah, totally, man. I never even looked at it from that perspective. That's fascinating thinking about that. It's very true.
Yeah, I mean, think about like when a still from the Prohibition era pops up on one of those shows, and they're like, "Oh my gosh,"
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, that's like a lathe from fucking some heady person's shop or what, what I mean? And so yeah, like that's what will be interesting, and and I think even when you talk about like what will survive from artists, a lot of this $30 card caps get broken and lost. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like the people that put the hours, like I can tell you every one tribe that goes out my door is leaving in a Pelican. Like, and that doesn't mean that they can't get broken, but, I have intention of my art being around 50 years from now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's fun. Like so with my brother, he has a friend, a collector, I guess, that's been buying his pendants, and that's all this guy's been buying. But he wanted a custom painted Pelican case for my brother just to keep his pendants in. Just to keep him safe.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so that's, the interesting, I think we'll see is, if you're an artist and you're putting the time in that your work demands being taken care of, I think it will be taken care of.
Yeah.
And that's where we see that line as far as like when you talk about those new collectors and stuff like that. A lot of those new collectors also aren't going to take care of glass the way it should be. So a lot of the cheap glass, I guess in a sense, and what optimally we'll see happen is it would be great if American hobbyists overtook the Chinese import part of the, business.
Yeah, there's no reason it shouldn't. There's so many people out there that are doing this that can make China killers all day long, but they refuse to. They want to make rigs and make the high-end shit and have an ego. I'm not saying everybody, but there's a select group out there that could potentially take over that market.
Well, and I do see, and I guess one reason I mentioned that is I do see more of these new, I don't want to say more, but I see a select percentage of these new blowers that are just doing that. They're like, I'm just going to be a tradesmith. And I'm like, word, rock on, be a fucking tradesmith. That's what you do.
Yep.
You make dabbers, you make them very well, you make them reasonably priced, rock the fuck on.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, and you don't have some ego where you're acting like you're reinventing the glass game.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Like just today I had first class with a new student who's taking my new intro to pipe making class, and I'm taking him through all the basics. Like, you're going to know how to push a bowl and drop a downstem. There's no jumping the gun and jumping right into the stuff, the big stuff. Because of that, you need to learn this slow, but also it allows you to make a little bit of a living while you're able to then support yourself and continue to learn and grow by making these little small, like he made a little pinch one hitter today. He was like, dude, he was so fucking excited. It gave me goosebumps. Like, it was awesome.
Nice.
Seeing the hunger and that kind of stuff. So it's I don't know. I can go on for days about the back and forths about the newbies, because I love them, and that's what I designed the show for, was for the new glass artists that's getting their foot on, underneath them and trying to find
Well, and
their
that's
ways.
the thing is, I don't want anybody to feel like I'm hating. Like, I highly encourage everybody, whether it's glass or being, I crochet. You know what I'm saying? Like, and honestly, that's the biggest thing I would say to any newbie glass artist at the moment. As far as advice, if glass isn't your thing, it's okay to find something else that's your thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and that's something that I think I've seen so much, because glass is such the cool thing to do right now that everybody's trying to do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I saw that with rappers too. Like, for 10 years, being a rapper was the coolest thing in the world. And I watched so many people that ended up being brilliant journalists or brilliant photographers or brilliant videographers who had to go, I don't really love this rap thing. Maybe I should try something else. And so that's the thing is, like, I absolutely, if the torch is something that's drawing someone in, give it a go. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, give it a real go. Give yourself a real shot at it. Dive in. Like, love that shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and if you don't, find something in life that you do want to do like that. You know what I mean? Because that's what really life is about, is waking up and being, able to do something that you actually want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Amen.
So
very true. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like, even like being a parent and having my kids, like I've never been like the stage dad, like, you're gonna play baseball and blah 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 blah. It's like I've always introduced my kids to all kind of shit and exposed them to all kind of stuff. And if they seem like they liked it, then we'd push them in that direction a little bit, But then eventually they may fade from it and want to go some other direction. And I completely agree, man. It's like, I will encourage anybody at any point in time to go melt some glass, because you may fall in love with it, like I did the very first blob of glass I made. And then you may be like, this isn't for me. Or you might be like, this is a fun little hobby. I'll go pay somebody to go in their studio and just kind of make some things here and there, or whatever. Or you become inspired to start your own little side business that is a subcultural thing within the industry. Whether it's dab mats or, custom Pelican cases. I mean, there's so many different ways. I mean, dude, the fucking guys and gals that are painting, that are making paintings inspired from pipes. Who would have ever thought that would have happened?
For sure.
It's awesome.
Fan-inspired art.
Yeah,
it's great.
It's fucking rad.
And I like, I think the paintings is a great example of people going, yo, I really dig this culture. I'm into it, but I it's calling to me in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and and yeah, I mean, one thing I think that's another thing also is like so many of these glass artists are like young. They're like 18 to 24-year-old, like fresh into the world energies. And as someone who's starting to be an old goat and shit, part of the fun of the adventure is that, like, fuck, dude, I didn't start rapping until I was 30. Like, who makes that life decision? Who's like, oh, I'm 30, I'm going to be a rapper now.
Right. I get that question at work all the time. People are like, so what the hell made you think about wanting to be a glass artist or a glass blower?
Well, or even like with you, like this whole podcast thing.
Yeah.
That's something that wasn't, on your radar. And you were like, hey, I feel, like you said, I feel disconnected. I want to be able to be more involved. And you just dove the fuck in.
Yep.
I remember when you debuted it, I was like, well, fucking look at that. And I thought that was awesome. I was like, this dude's exploring a new avenue to be able to use his voice and give other people a voice.
Yeah, and it was another creative outlet for me.
Yeah, which is and I think that's another thing that I always try to remind people is like the more creative outlets you give yourself, it's cyclical and it all builds off each other and you gain momentum and learn things. Like you were saying how like kind of everything came together in the One Tribe.
Yeah.
Like it was the culmination of 20 years of work and learning 8 different mediums and like fuck, I originally learned photography in like 96 in high school working in a dark room, and I used skills that I have like literally not used since high school to make that video. Like when I sat down to make it, I was like, okay, there's a whole bunch of shit I gotta figure out. I haven't done it in 20 fucking years, but we're gonna do it.
So cool, man, and you did. And it's and I think that's what is so fun about being a human and this path and journey that we go down and all these little things that we learn. And if you can really just kind of keep your eye on the prize in a sense of finding the passion and finding what direction you want to go in, and eventually all these things start to build up, and next thing you know, you find your thing. But it takes all that shit you got to go through of testing the waters along the way,
For sure. And not being afraid to fail, which is ultimately
Huge.
the greatest thing about glass.
Exactly.
Is glass out of all the meat. That's the number one thing that I learned through glass is never be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
And that now translates into like, if I'm making a beat and it starts to go some weird direction where I've never made a beat before, I'm like, fuck it, let's go this way. I might totally fail, but at least it's somewhere new. And that's kind of what glass does for you. It just pulls you in these new directions, and it teaches you not to be afraid to fail because you're gonna fail.
Oh yeah,
like you're going to fail.
I still do. 20 years later, fuck.
For sure.
But I fail because I'm stepping outside of my comfort zone, and that's when the failure happens. But when you fail, you can then find out why you failed, or you can maybe learn something that you were actually successful inside of that failure. And then you can pull that success out and then take that and fucking run with it, like your fucking your style of your pieces, that I'm sure over the years as you're finding your voice and one thing shapes into another, or some buddy stops by and he's like, hey man, are you making that? And you're like, no, I'm not, but I am now, because they have a different perspective of what you're working on, It's,
right. And and that's the thing you learn is there's really no failures. Yeah. There's just opportunities to learn.
It's that whole failing forward idea.
Absolutely. And so, to all the new kids, I think that's the other thing is like, don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to fail. I'm really good at failing. I'm excellent at failing. Yeah. I'm just a little bit better at brushing myself and getting back up afterwards.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, when the kids always like when I get little kids out, at work and I'm making something, they're like, how do you do that? I'm like, well, I'm showing you. What are you talking about? But I always refer to it as riding a bike, and I'm like, I ask these kids, I'm like, so when you got on a bike for the first time, did you ride it right away? I had this one kid one day. He's like, "Yeah, right, first day." I was like, "You're lying." I was like, "You're lying to me." I said that to him, and his parents start laughing. But the kids are always like, "No, actually, it took me like maybe a week or 2 weeks." And I'm like, "Did you get back on the bike and keep pedaling?" And they're like, "Yep." And now you can ride a bike like it's second nature to you, huh? And they're like, "Yep." And then you can kind of see in their eyes they're beginning to understand. And I tell them, I'm like, I fall off the bike every day, and I actually fell off the bike this morning, and I got right back up and got back on there and started pedaling. And they're like, what do you mean? And then I just tell them, I was working on this today, and this broke, and I just put it down and walked away and came back to it and started over again, and here I am now creating what I'm creating. and it gives it a fun understanding, which is part of my gig that I love so much, is that the influence I can have on adults and kids alike, with the whole process. And again,
bro, you
adversity.
blow glass at Disneyland. That's the coolest fucking job in the history of
Disney
man.
World, man. Get it right.
What? Oh yeah. One, it's a lot better than Disneyland too. I'll say that. I'll step up and say that. Like, cause I always grew up going to the Disney World down here in Florida. And then like, I went to the one in California, and like, real talk, what's up with their Magic Kingdom? Like, it's some bullshit. It's like 3 stories high. Like, it's not a Magic Kingdom at all.
What's interesting with Disneyland and California Adventure, you can fit those 2 parks inside of the parking lot at Magic Kingdom.
Oh, wow. Okay. No, I mean, I was strongly disappointed.
Yeah, like my whole thing for me, like just this, we're going on a whole nother tangent here, but for me, I still haven't got a chance to go out there to California yet, and for me, having a passion for Walt and his and he's another great example of someone that was not afraid of failure, and to be able to go someplace where this man walked and was a huge part of is something I want to be able to experience, so.
No, I can dig that. And that's, that's another weird thing about Florida is Florida has these places where, like, I haven't mentioned that, but one thing that's very interesting about the area I'm in is this is where both Edison and Ford lived. And so they're like museums like 2 miles from here. And there's a weird energy down here, that if you can tap into it, like I said, there's just this kind of like, I don't know. It's like a fountain of youth, and I think you see it in Disney, and you see it through these other great inventors and minds that have kind of like secretly snuck away down here, and people may not associate them with Florida, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, like this place has some things going on. So but no, that's what you get to do. You blow glass at fucking Disney World. That's just incredible. I'm not jealous of many people in life, but that one right there is pretty damn good, brother.
Yeah, thanks, brother. Damn good. And that's all just because I like talking to people and have conversations, and that's what has led me to blowing glass, and then led me to get my gig there. Just having conversations with people and talking to the artists and stuff.
See, and honestly, that's even kind of something I think I'm trying to figure out moving forward as a glass artist and just an artist in general is I want something where I get more opportunity to interact with people. Because that's the number one thing I don't like about being a glass artist is just being locked in a studio away from everyone all the time. Yeah, that's just not my vibe. So that even when you talk about art having eras, like if glass ever kind of came to an end for me or became more of a back burner, that would be the reason why, is I just would get sick of sitting around in a studio all day.
No, I understand, man. But areas like Fort Myers and Sarasota that are on the water, like they have like their piers and stuff, and they have people that do art, live art on like Friday nights or Saturday nights, for like art walks and stuff.
I'm starting to tap into that a little bit more. So yeah, I'm one thing that's been very interesting about the experience here is like, while I was in caretaker mode, I really couldn't go anywhere.
Right.
So I had to stay like within like a half an hour. One time in 18 months, I went more than half an hour away, and of course, there was an emergency, and I wasn't here. So I had to stay like really close and couldn't like commit into things that I couldn't leave right away. So I'm just now like getting to figure out the area, and like I said, there's some culture here. It's not quite what I'm used to being in like a major city, but there's at least enough to work with. So
yeah, man. If you get a chance to get to the Edison house that's down there, I think it's like on 13 acres of property or some shit, and they have like these banyan trees that just go on for acres and acres and acres. It's absolutely incredible to see nature in this form of these banyan trees. I mean, they're literally like 3 or 4 acres big.
No, that's what I was just talking about. The Edison and Ford museums, like 2 miles.
It's amazing.
So I've been there. That museum all the way around. Even have you been there?
Yeah.
Did you see the old glass blowing equipment that's in there?
I haven't been there in a long time, and I'm sure as a kid I saw it, but honestly, it's
Gotcha. No, honestly, that was one of the neatest things of the Edison Ford Museum, beyond the banyan trees, which I agree are fucking epic. Was they have like old glass blowing shit for all the scientific experiments and shit they were doing.
Fascinating.
And it's been, I mean, it's like just like pipes kind of screwed together. You're like, holy shit, what the hell were you doing on
Interesting.
that thing?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man, that museum, honestly, to anybody like that rolls through Southwest Florida, if there was one thing I would recommend, the Edison Ford Museum is pretty fucking spectacular. Very inspiring. Very inspiring. Like you said about walking the same, place that Walt walked and stuff like that. You
Mm-hmm.
just kind of, you're like, yo, this is where ideas happened.
Yeah.
Like big ideas. This is where big ideas happen.
Yeah, like world-changing stuff for sure.
Yeah. And that's the, once again, bringing it full circle, like we need people to step up right now and be bold enough to try to have world-changing ideas. Which means, thinking outside of the box, and that's really what, those great minds did, is they said, fuck a box. I'm just going for it. I'm going to come up with some new shit.
Yeah, and not being afraid to be the one guy in the crowd that claps.
Right? Exactly. I love that.
Fuck
Be
yeah.
the one guy in the crowd that claps. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Well, I think on that note, bro, I'm going to go take a piss real quick, and then during that pee, we'll take a quick break and thank some sponsors. And then we'll come back, and it'll be time for us to crash the kiln.
I can dig it.
This segment of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by The Flow Magazine. Right now, The Flow Magazine is extending their deadline for submissions for their marble and paperweight issue, summer 2019. They have extended their deadline until March 30th, 2019. And if you'd like to have any kind of marbles or paperweights submitted, you have to have this in by March 30th. Make sure you please include an email with 3 to 5 high-resolution digital images of all your glass art that you have at least 300 DPI images, and along with a completed submission form to theflow.maureen@gmail.com. Check the show notes for the link for that. And again, that is for anybody interested in submitting any glass, marbles, or paperweights into the summer 2019 issue. If you also would like to subscribe to The Flow Magazine, you can go to theflowmagazine.com and use promo code WISEGUY, that's WYZGUY, and you'll receive 10% off your annual subscription. That's theflowmagazine.com. All right, man, we are back. Holy shit, I could have filled a 2-liter. Feel much
It was
better.
intense.
Good
It
Lord,
was
have
much
mercy.
needed. I was going to be on air. I really was. I should have. I almost regret it. Future shows. There's always future.
Yeah, we got
opportunities.
plenty more. That's for sure. Have to get our personal one. We talked about doing one in person. So
Episode 2, peeing on air.
Yeah,
Maybe
there
we
we
can
go.
just talk about the whole. Okay. Anyways, moving forward.
yeah, man. So the Crash the Kiln round consists of 7 questions, and you can give me a 30 to 60 second answer or expound upon them as we always tend to do. And this first one's always a doozy, which is if there's any living glass artist that you want to collab and work with, that is us, that is alive and well, and you had not yet worked with them before, who is it and why?
That's a good question. If there was one glass artist living or alive, here's my first preface to this question: I hate collaborating. Period. Music, glass, any of it. Not a fan. It's one reason I've become an artistic decathlete and I do everything myself. Is because I think collaboration often leads to compromising a dream, which is why you see bands fall apart and shit like that all the time.
Right.
Because it's trying to turn like 4 dreams into one. That's not to say that I never collaborate, but it's never been like a centralized focus. You know what I'm saying? So I guess if I was going to collaborate, I'd want to do something with someone that I felt like took my art in a very, very different direction. When I think about that, because I don't spend much time thinking about who I would collaborate with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I honestly have no clue. I've already got to collaborate with like some of my, some of my heroes, and that's been really neat. To like get to live that experience. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't have an answer to that.
Hey,
That's my answer.
that was
I
your
don't have an answer.
That's perfect.
I guess at the end of the day, like really with the whole concept of the One Tribe is everybody. Like what I really want to do with the One Tribe moving forward is do different variations where I do like 1 or 2 collabs of the tribe with like different artists.
Cool.
So There's no one person. I wanna get down with everyone out there.
There you go.
Let's do it. I'm gonna roll up in your city, rock a mic, and we're gonna make a dope pipe.
Hell yeah. Well, but and that's the fun thing about like what you found in terms of having this canvas that you've created in a sense. You know what I mean? And to me, like the artists I look up to are those like the Mike Lunas of the world that have this. Like he has this dragon. He's been making the same kind of looking dragon. And he changes them up here and there, but like the pose and the style of this piece has been so refined that he can literally go work with any glass artist, and you can see two different artists coming together to make one piece with this canvas that Mike's created with this dragon. You know what I mean?
For
And,
sure.
you know,
For sure.
And I think with your one tribe, you've kind of collaborated with yourself in a sense.
I did. Like I said, it was all those influences from the different people. You know, I mean, because I was lucky enough as a beginner artist. You know, like who as a beginner artist gets to go into like master shops right off? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
within 6 months, I'm like in Bertoni's shop kicking it, and I'm like, what's going on? Why am I here? But you know, that's just kind of how shit worked out. There, I got to, you know, like, or like Roan. Roan's another like brilliant artist that I got to work with like right off rip and kick it with. And, you know, it just goes on and on. Where like, yeah, it's and so yeah, I think collaboration can be a lot of fun. But here's my other point that I want to make about collaboration. Too many upcoming artists look at collaboration as a way to make it come up. And once again, to me, that's not like finding your own voice. So I wanted to find my own voice first, which I feel like I've now done.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can kind of do some collaboration.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah, riding the coattails isn't always a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It's beneficial, but it's not like, if that's like for the ego and the purpose of it, then it's not a good thing.
Well, and I guess like to me also, like, you know, once again, like if you're going to make a good song with someone, you don't want to like make a song with, you know, if a rapper comes up to me and they're like, yo, I want to make a song together, and they spit their rap, and I'm like, yo, it's solid, but you're still a couple years away from being able to like really make a banging song with me. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I have no problem saying to somebody, like, go put in a couple more years work and come back and let's make the piece of art that we really could make together.
Yeah.
And I've had people do that to me too. I've had people be like, yo, you need to put in more work. And I'm like, fucking A, word. I'm gonna go grind. And I think as artists, like, you know, I think it's good to get down and collaborate, but I think you gotta make people earn that collaboration. And yeah, I feel like I've just now got to the opportunity where I feel like I couldn't, a year ago, if I came to your studio, I would feel like I wasn't contributing my own voice to the project.
Right.
So what's the point of me being there?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep, absolutely. Hell yeah. Number 2 is your top 5 favorite colors in glass.
Interesting. Man, I tend to use a lot of striking stuff, and stuff that works good with blasting. So I use shit tons of like caramel and amber purple. I love using, I think it's like grape is my black substitute. I use it all the damn time. What other colors have I been really into? Besides those 3, once again with the tribe, if you notice with the tribe, like all 50 are different, like every single tribe member is different in its colors and its, you know, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So I tried not to get too married to one color, you know what I'm saying? So like those were kind of like my 3 go-tos, but beyond those 3, I'm kind of on a constant color exploration.
Cool.
I like denim a lot, but it's a bitch of a color. You know what I mean? Like there's some colors I like.
It's a pain in the
bitch
ass.
of a color. Awesome fucking color if you can get it not to crack into a million fucking pieces.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, and some of those new like crayon colors and shit, you know, the new cadmiums that came out are fucking amazing. And they're less moody than the old ones, but still, to a new blower, you gotta be careful with them. Yeah. So some of those are dope too.
Okay.
Yeah. They're all dope.
Awesome. What is your worst injury in the studio?
Ooh, you know, I haven't had anything too horrible happen. I had a pretty nasty cut not too long ago where I had a rod snap in my hand and then, you know, slice through a finger. But luckily I've been, knock on wood. I'm gonna knock on wood real quick.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I've been pretty blessed. And I think let me say this. So the gnarliest thing I've seen, and I think this is one reason why I've always been really cautious on the torch, is when I was a journalist, Rhino took a hot rod to his eye. Ooh. Like the night before our interview. You know what I'm saying? And so like I saw that, it was like 2 days, like whatever. I saw this like fucking injury like fresh and raw, and I was like, nope, I am never ever ever fucking around in a glass studio ever. So yeah, the only other one I will mention real quick, I got a sliver of glass in the bottom of my foot, and to all the glass blowers out there, proper foot protection. I was in SoCal at the time, and I was a little like SoCal laid back about my foot protection, and I got a piece of glass in the bottom of my foot, and to this day it has never come out, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good.
I had a piece of my foot for 7 years.
Did you?
And
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably at like 5.
Yeah, eventually it ate a hole in my foot. Like literally, like the area that the glass was in, my skin kind of ate itself out, and then the glass went away, I guess. But
Really?
yeah, I had like
See,
this weird
people, yeah,
cavity.
people have said eventually it will go away, but yeah, it's been like it's right in the ball of my left foot, and it's been there forever, and
Yeah, it
it's
sucks.
annoying.
Oh, dude, because every time your
So-
body rejects it, you step on it and it pushes it right back in.
Right, absolutely. No, I mean, like for the first like 6 months after it happened, I could barely walk. So it's a weird injury, but yeah, like it's almost like an elephant getting a splinter. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it's the smallest fucking thing, but it really like. So yeah, wear proper foot protection. All other,
Yeah.
it's not just about eye protection. Don't be rocking flip flops in the shop. You ain't cool.
Yeah, man,
You ain't cool with the
I've
flip-flops in the
stuck
shop.
flip-flops to the bottom of my feet before with hot glass.
Ooh, that sounds awesome.
Yeah, and then I
That
went directly
sounds
to a
awesome.
hot shop and had to work with socks and shoes on immediately after that.
Nice.
It was a rough day.
That's not a good day.
No,
That's not a
I've
good
done
day
some
at
dumb
all.
shit.
Well, it's hard here in Florida not to rock flip flops in the shop. It's like 7 gajillion degrees.
Yeah.
Like blowing glass butt fucking naked. Like it's intense.
Dude, I'm telling you, if they made a Kevlar sock that fit my dick, I'd be perfect.
right. I'm done. I have a hemp clothing sponsor. She could probably whip that up for you.
Like Red Hot Chili Peppers on stage, just in here keeping that
She's
protected.
got you. She's a dope designer. I'll put
Sweet.
you in touch.
Get
Put
the old
you in
banana
touch.
hammock Kevlar.
Shout out to Yan Love, my hemp. Yeah, that's another thing. Ways you can use your voice, support other people.
Yeah.
I have a hemp clothing sponsor named the Yan Love Experience out of Canada. She provides all the gear for my videos and shit.
Nice.
So yeah.
Writing that down. So next question is, when you're in the studio working, you listen to music, watch TV, or do you do both?
I'm a music guy. I've actually only been in one studio that did TV. But yeah, personally, I'm a music guy. But that's another thing that I really loved about glass blowing is sometimes being a musician, it's really hard to find time to like listen and appreciate music.
Mhm.
And that was something that like really brought me back into being a glass blower. Also, is it gave me time to be a music fan again. So
Nice.
I go all over the place. Like I'm a very eclectic music dude. So I tend to start the day with some high energy, like some Run the Jewels, or some Wu-Tang Clan. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I like to start the day on a very up note. But throughout the day, I'll do everything from some jazzy type stuff. Like I love all sorts of old like Billie Holiday and Nina Simone, and there's different parts of the day for different vibes. If a piece cracks, you might want to switch things up, switch the music vibe up.
Yeah.
So,
Nice.
yeah. There's some. I mean, glass is so about falling into a rhythm that I think the music, really helps provide that to where like you fall. Like I dance.
Oh,
Do you
me-
dance while you blow
Oh,
glass?
yeah,
like I
dude.
literally like dance.
I love it. Like I like back in the day, I would work out there. Literally, I was in my underwear and like flip flops, and I had my neighbor stop by one day, and I'm out there just dancing and shit. And he's like,
Yeah.
"You having fun in here, bro?" And I'm like, "Bro, I'm in my underwear and my flip flops, and I'm loving it right now."
Yeah, I mean when you really like sink into music, and that's honestly my goal moving forward is to start. I mean, as far as I know, I'm the only motherfucker that can like crush the torch and then get up on stage and crush a mic. So I'm ready to start traveling around the country and doing both of those activities
Yeah.
at the same time.
It reminds me, before I forget, Joe Scar. He goes by Scar Glass. He's a phenomenal glass artist out in the Northwest.
Okay.
And he actually went into a studio and recorded all the little intricate sounds that we can create, from like knocking off your glass rod into a container or flipping on your kiln.
Okay.
And took all those little songs, dude, and made a track out of it, and I use it in the show.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
I will definitely
it's
check that
killer.
out.
Yeah.
I'll definitely check that out. I'm excited. That's like what I'm doing right after I get off the show.
Yeah, it's fun.
Sort
So,
of
let's see. So, if you could describe the sound of glass cracking, whether like the literal sound of it cracking or like a subconscious spiritual emotion that you experience when it happens, what would you say? Just one word, or a statement.
It's the moment a girl tells you I can't do this anymore.
Mm. Yeah, a little heartbreak.
Yeah. Although there's also, as opposed to that feeling, with glass, I instantaneously get very pissed off and want vengeance right away. Like, so that's the best part about glass is you can get vengeance.
Yeah.
As opposed to love, you just have to sit in heartache.
Yeah. Very true. Just got to stew in it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. Let's see.
But that's the feeling for sure. Like, motherfucker.
Yeah, it's so funny. So I'm just gonna. It's been a while since I've done an interview. It's been like a month. I've been playing best of, so I'm gonna have to go through my head here. Let's see. Glass injury. TV. That. The fuck am I missing? There's one more before the last one. Maybe it's just 6 questions. I don't know. Well, anyways, so the last question I'll ask you, and if the other one comes to me, I'll remember it, is your top 5 favorite tools, and that does not include your glasses, your kiln, or your torch.
Okay. Well, for carving, I use a cheese cutter set. That's what I do all my carving with.
Nice.
So, yeah, I love that. Particularly because, like, cheese knives have that shorter handle.
Mm-hmm.
So it just fits better in my hand. So that's why I recommend that. It gives me a little more control. What else do I use, like, all the time? I mean, everything else that I love is, like, just your standard paddles and stuff like that. But those are the cheese cutters. That's my special guys for sure.
Hell yeah, interesting. I never thought about that because I know, like, I've heard of, like, leather tools and like different, like I love my spoon, for instance. I use a lot for a lot of stuff. My spoon,
Nice.
my butter knife. Yeah, if you can get your hands on a
Nice.
spoon that has a round handle, not necessarily like completely circular, but even like mine's got like an oval shape to it, so you can
Right.
move it around a little easier.
I can see that.
Yeah, it's
I
killer.
can see that for sure. Yeah, I'm gonna have to try a spoon. I've never rocked a spoon. I mean, that, and like you said about a butter knife. I mean, yeah, like, to me, there's nothing that can't be a glass tool.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
totally.
Like, so there's certainly like a little collection of tools that, like, I don't even know what the fuck they're called. They're just something tools that I was like, I bet I can put a shape in glass with that.
Mm-hmm.
And wham, it's a tool. Everything's a glass tool as long as the glass doesn't set on fire or melt it.
Yep. Absolutely. And for me, when I went from ceramics to glass, it was so hard not to want to use my thumbnails and shit because I use that a lot for tools in my ceramics.
I can see that.
So that's
I
where
can see
the
that.
spoons and the knives had to come in.
Right, absolutely. A spoon is much better than a thumbnail when
Yeah.
it comes to glass.
Yeah.
It's not advised.
Even though every time I made not every time, but I had a lot of people over the years ask me, how'd you get that thumbprint on the bottom of that spoon?
Right?
I'm like,
Right.
I use my thumb. What do you mean? And it's just my graphite pad, you jackass.
Right. No, just keep telling. Let them believe whatever they want to believe.
Oh, dude, I'd say
That's
some,
cool.
especially at work, I'd tell people some stupid shit, and they believe a lot of it. I kind of joke
Well,
around with it, but it's fun.
It's magic. Part of being an artist is the illusion of presenting it all as magic.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah, like when I was saying about the kids asking me how I learned what I do, I'm like, oh, I went to Hogwarts.
Right?
And they're like, what do you
What?
mean?
Right? Give them a little folklore. Just sprinkle in a little folklore.
Yeah.
It makes the dream funner.
Exactly.
Makes the dream funner.
Yeah, man. Well, before I let you go here, if you want to give us a parting piece of advice, and then where we can find you out there in that world of cyberspace.
All right. Well, I'm going to go. Here's today's parting piece of advice. I mentioned earlier that everything's all about self-love, and today is Self-Love Sundays. So every Sunday, I make sure to take the day to just refill my cup and do some good things and nice things for myself. And I have like an inspirational quote I came up with for every week. And this week's quote was, self-care knows no finish line. It is simply learning to love running the race. And so that's going to be my parting piece of advice. Is to go out and learn how to start loving yourself and learn how to start being that whole complete person that you can be, so that you can contribute an original voice to our world, and come be part of the tribe, because we need everybody to realize we're all part of one tribe, and we're in this shit together, and we all got to play our motherfucking role. So
hell yeah, dude, that's so good.
That's that. Well, brother, thank you again for having me on. It's been an absolute honor.
Oh yeah, man, it's been fun.
It's been good, and we will. We're gonna have to actually link up in person here soon. I want to come see Disney World and shit like that. So
yeah, I agree.
We'll make it happen.
Hell yeah! Before I forget to, where can we find you out there on the interwebs?
Oh, on the interwebs, I am everywhere under Aaron Evans Art. So my website is aaronevansart.com. On Instagram, I'm Aaron Evans Art. On Twitter, I'm Aaron Evans Art, because I make a fuck ton of art. So yeah, beyond the One Tribe, I should mention before we get out of here, I have several other new videos out at the moment. King of the Jungle, which was shot here in an island paradise in Florida. It's amazing. And the Test to Healing, and my new album, Hope Floats, drops May 5th. This is the first time I've announced that. So when you debut this show, I'm going to announce to the world that the album's dropping May 5th, and that's exciting.
Awesome.
So,
I'm honored.
Yeah, check for it, and we'll build more soon, brother.
Hell yeah. Well, hang on until I say goodbye here. We'll say goodbye off the air. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed this conversation. As always, the show goes in all kind of twists and turns, and it's a pleasure having Aaron on, talking art, talking love, and man, that last quote, dude, that was some shit. So I definitely, it's been an honor and a pleasure having you on, and I hope you guys check him out, check out this video. It's something I've always wanted to do, and I've been talking about for years, of doing some kind of animated something with glass, and it seems like whenever we talk about things, someone out there gets that vibe and does it. So stop talking and fucking do. And until next time, we'll see you on the Wise Guy Radio Show. Have a beautiful day. Stay wise. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.
creation.